Chapter 2103. Races had a strong sense of territory. Especially when a race had a god-level expert, the race's territory would be sacred and inviolable. The luminous ladybug race was indeed far inferior to the blood-devouring beasts, but they also had their king, the luminous ladybug king. Even if it had just stepped into the god level, there was still a huge gap between a god-level expert and a god-level expert. A race with a god-level expert could occupy a territory in the meteorite turbulence danger zone. Unless it was an enemy race, other races would not step into the territory of a god-level expert, because it was seen as a provocation and invasion. Oh my god! Firefly had just swallowed a fruit from the luminous god tree when her eyes widened in fright. Countless luminous ladybugs covered the sky and earth and attacked her directly. There were the auras of 7-star experts, 8-star experts, and many 9-star experts mixed in. Their numbers were in the tens of thousands. Just the number alone could completely crush her. A little bit of danger. Firefly did not know how to react. She wanted to settle the score with her 7th brother, Lin Feng, but now was not the time. Escaping was more important. In an instant, the wind and clouds changed, and Lin Feng had already made his move. Since he had come here and knew everything about Jiangji, Lin Feng had naturally made all the preparations, including this magical luminous god tree and this endless army of luminous ladybugs. Great Brahma! Lin Feng immediately used his domain. When fighting one against many, the domain's power could be maximized. Moreover, his opponents were not intelligent experts, but a group of insects that acted on instinct and orders. Although there were many of them, they were not much of a threat. The luminous ladybug were much easier to deal with than the blood-devouring beasts. Hua! The wings of warmth distorted the space, and many spatial distortions were released. Lin Feng's mind was scattered all over, and the whole area was under his control. The black dragon in his hand unleashed its power, and it was like a black dragon had appeared out of nowhere. Boom! The second move of the myriad obscuring heavenly blade, Tears of Troubled Times. Lin Feng was currently studying the second move, Tears of Chaos. Compared to the guiding saber technique in the saber consummate proficiency realm, Tears of Chaos at the peak state of the saber was an extremely powerful saber technique. Ashes uses the Tao of Light and the Tao of Dark Matter. Tears of Chaos uses the Tao of Light and the Tao of Dark Devil. Lin Feng already faintly understood the true profoundness of the myriad obscuring heavenly blade. Every move actually contained the combination of the 6 paths of light and the 6 paths of darkness. Previously, his realm was not high enough, and his strength was not high enough, so it was difficult to comprehend. But now, not only had he reached the peak of his saber technique realm, but he had also pried open the gate of 100,000 origins. Now that I've used Tears of Pandemonium, I'm able to unleash even more power than normal. Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a hint of blood red. The All of Law formed in his body, like a supreme blood-swallow horn that reached the heavens. The Tao of Dark Devil, 100,000 origins. Boom! Rumble. Lin Feng's attacks seemed chaotic and crazy, but they were extremely powerful. They swept through a large area. Tears of Chaos in its true form not only possessed powerful attacks, but it also pulsed with halos. Every time he killed a 9-star luminous ladybug, he would kill a group of 7 and 8-star luminous ladybugs as well. Like he was mowing down grass. Lin Feng instantly harvested a large swath of ladybugs with his domain of Brahma. The tens of thousands of luminous ladybugs originally shone with white light, but they had already dimmed by now. They gradually returned to their normal color. The harvesting continued. Lin Feng's comprehension of Tears of Chaos was still muddled. He was nowhere near able to unleash its true profundity. However, with the Tao of Dark Devil and the peak state of the saber, dealing with the luminous ladybugs was a piece of cake. Firefly was completely dumbfounded. At that moment, she finally understood why Lin Feng had said that there was only a little danger here. Out of the tens of thousands of luminous ladybugs, there were several 109-star luminous ladybugs, but over half of them had died in the blink of an eye. Most terrifyingly, not only was Lin Feng completely unscathed, his battle prowess had not decreased at all. Instead, he became more and more excited as he fought, killing with even greater vigor. He was extremely efficient. His strength seemed to be inexhaustible. Seventh brother, is he still human? Firefly's eyes widened as her heart trembled. The shock it brought her was too great. An attack that could be described as a calamity had become a trial for Lin Feng to practice his saber arts. Black Lotus swung out time and time again. The divine inscriptions of light and mysterious inscriptions of darkness fused together in a wondrous fashion. Lin Feng discovered very soon that his target had disappeared. It's over. The blood-red light in Lin Feng's eyes disappeared in a split second, returning to normal. Although he was in the dark demon state and his saber arts were like a mad demon, Lin Feng's heart did not waver at all. Instead, he borrowed the excitement of the state to comprehend his saber arts even more deeply and thoroughly. Tears of Troubled Times. It seems chaotic, but it's not. It's suitable for both single and group battles. In terms of attack speed, it's not as fast as Ashes, but in terms of power, it's far superior. Every move of the myriad obscuring heavenly blade had its own characteristics. Under the peak of the saber, the difference in power was not that great. Instead, it paid more attention to the characteristics of the saber arts. For example, Ash's speed was endless, and Tears of Troubled Times' frenzied attacks were fluctuating. Tears of Troubled Times is very important to me. Lin Feng understood very well. Because his Tao of Darkness had only reached 100,000 Origin Realm experts, he could use Tears of Troubled Times to its greatest extent. If he had guessed correctly, the remaining 4 moves of the myriad obscuring heavenly blade were a combination of the Grand Tao of Light and the Grand Tao of Darkness. 6 moves, 6 Grand Taos of Light, and 6 Grand Taos of Darkness. Unknowingly, Ancestor Wan Qian had already paved the path for him. This was the true appearance of the myriad obscuring heavenly blade. It seemed like a guide, but it was actually an offensive saber art. When he thought it was an offensive saber art, it was actually a guide. The ancestor's cultivation was just too high. Seventh brother, you're just too terrifying. Firefly stared at Lin Feng. Only after quite a while did she say that. Her eyes flickered. There was some reverence, some envy, and some disbelief. This is only the beginning, fifth sister. Lin Feng pointed ahead. These luminous ladybugs are only the tip of the iceberg. They're not even 100th of the entire luminous sacred lands population. OMG. Firefly felt the world spin. Tens of thousands of luminous ladybugs were not even 100th of the total. The number of luminous ladybugs was just too ridiculous. The strongest aspect of the insectoids is their ability to reproduce. Lin Feng smiled. Because the luminous ladybugs are special life forms, their ability to reproduce has been greatly weakened. Otherwise, why would there only be a few million of them? A few 100 million is probably just a drop in the ocean. Firefly was speechless. Don't tell me we have to kill our way in. Why not? Lin Feng's eyes flickered. He looked at the completely shocked Firefly and pointed at the surroundings with a smile. Fifth sister, haven't you noticed? Chapter 2104. What did she find? Firefly was confused and looked around in a daze. Suddenly, her beautiful eyes widened. Firefly gently lifted her jade-like hands as if she was holding something invisible. She took a deep breath and said in shock, What was going on? Lin Feng smiled and said, The luminous ladybug is a very special creature. Although it is of the insect race, it is a special life form. It does not have a corpse and cannot be destroyed. Kill it and it will return to its original form, turning into the purest light energy and merging with the luminous sacred land. Before it becomes a luminous ladybug king, to be precise, it is an energy life form wearing the skin of an insect. But after becoming a luminous ladybug king, it will transform and obtain the Tao of Light. It will become an energy life form and flesh life form again. Not only does it have intelligence, but it can also reproduce. Lin Feng opened his hands, palms facing up, and moved his fingers slightly with a smile. The divine runes of light on his body moved slightly, as if they were breathing, and they emitted a brilliant light as they wantonly absorbed the light energy. The luminous sacred land has 3 treasures. Ranked third is the luminous god tree. It bears luminous fruits, pure crystals of light that can strengthen the body, light energy, and a trace of bloodline. In second place are the millions of luminous ladybugs. The illuminant ladybugs will transform into the purest form of light energy in the illuminant holy land. We can absorb it directly. It won't do much to strengthen our physical bodies, but it can improve our light aptitude and bloodline. Talent. Bloodline. Firefly's cheeks flushed red, her full chest rising and falling slightly. She was very surprised and could not hide her excitement. Energy was easy to obtain and treasures could be bought, but talent and bloodline were innate and difficult to improve. Diligent cultivation could improve one's strength steadily, but the level one could reach depended on innate talent and bloodline. Her talent and bloodline were not bad, but she knew she could not compare to the patriarch and second brother. But now, there was a chance to improve. How could she not be excited? Is what you said true, seventh brother? Firefly's voice was trembling, her eyes full of expectation and hope. Lin Feng nodded with a smile. Firefly closed her eyes, stabilized her mind, and breathed deeply, absorbing this pure light source as fast as she could. The origin energy was not endless. The total amount was the total amount of energy from the luminous ladybugs killed. After killing them, the origin energy would spread and be absorbed by the luminous sacred land, weakening it at an extremely fast rate. Therefore, every bit he could absorb was a little bit. If we seize this opportunity, there's hope for Fifth Sister's bloodline to break through. Lin Feng stared at the glowing Fifth Sister Firefly. She too had faint divine runes of light on her body. Her aura was similar to his divine rune of light. Although their bloodlines were different, their methods of cultivation were the same. Considering the power of a single glorious ladybug and the number of glorious light, sacred grounds, Lin Feng pondered for a moment before nodding. Fifth Sister and I have more than enough to upgrade our bloodlines. This was a reason why he had come all the way here. Bloodline. What was stopping him now was the level of the divine rune of light. Upgrading the divine rune of light would not only strengthen his fusion and increase his combat strength, but it would also transform his life force. Although it might not be as good as the dark rune of light at the beginning, the more the better. Perfect. With enough glorious ladybugs, I won't have to search for ferocious beast hordes. If I kill all the glorious ladybugs here, my comprehension of tears of chaos will reach a new level. Lin Feng absorbed the pure light source, refined the sovereign blood centipede horn, and comprehended the saber art, tears of chaos. The 3 things were very fulfilling. This was the final push before entering the God-fallen world. Deep inside the luminous sacred land. From the initial shock, Firefly gradually got used to it. Firefly was already numb to 7th brother Lin Feng's strength. No matter what 7th brother did now, even if he poked a hole in the sky, Firefly could accept it. Plus, she was like a speeding train right now. She couldn't care less. Following 7th brother Lin Feng, she ate her fill every day. She hadn't even digested the first glorious divine fruit, and now there was a second one. Needless to say, she didn't even need to do anything. When Lin Feng killed, she could directly absorb it. Seeing her bloodline and light talent become better and better each day, steadily improving, that feeling was too wonderful. In just 66 days, Firefly reached her limit. 10 days later, her bloodline successfully broke through the limit, reaching a new level. Following the fusion of a pair of wings of light, Firefly's strength increased greatly. She had stopped at 50th place on the Origin Awakener list for a long time. Previously, she couldn't take another step forward because of the shackles of her bloodline. Now that her bloodline level had increased, she directly stepped into the middle level. Not only did her combat strength transform, but her upper limit also increased. In the future, Fifth Sister will definitely surpass Third Sister. Lin Feng looked at Fifth Sister Firefly, whose runes were shining brightly, and smiled. Fifth Sister's utilization of her strength was actually not bad. When she was a low-level deity, She was ranked 50th on the Origin Awakener list, entering the threshold of middle-level deity. Now, that she was a middle-level deity, when she cultivated to the upper limit, she should be able to enter the threshold of high-level deity. She should be ranked around 30th. Third Sister's ranking was only 33rd. 4 9-star experts, the upper limit was basically equal to their strength. This was because they had enough time to reach the upper limit. Ranked 30th on the Origin Awakener list is more or less 5th Sister's limit. Lin Feng understood that unless she had another fortuitous encounter, 5th Sister would only be able to reach this point. Although her bloodline had transformed this time, the energy required for the next bloodline upgrade would be even greater, more than 10 times. Right now, the total energy of the glorious ladybugs in the glorious sacred land was less than half. Next, it's my turn. Lin Feng was looking forward to it. 97th day in the glorious sacred land. It's here. Lin Feng smiled in satisfaction. Finally, the clouds parted and the moon shone brightly. The divine rune of light flickered slightly, as if it was incomparably excited, as if it had a life of its own. It emitted a resplendent light as one of its feet crossed that boundary, transforming into a butterfly. Divine runes covered it densely, like branches and leaves blooming. They were complex and ever-changing, containing endless mysteries. The aura and energy gradually approached the dark rune. However, one had just entered the 4th stage, while the other was already at the limit of the 4th stage. The difference was still very large. Moreover, the dark rune had the origin of the sacred land as its core, so it was much stronger than the divine rune of light. Lin Feng let out a long breath, his eyes shining slightly. The first step can be considered completed. Let's begin the second step. It's time to find the most important treasure of the glorious sacred land. Chapter 2105. The glorious sacred land had 3 treasures. The first was the fruit of the glorious sacred tree. It was the easiest to obtain, and its effects were easily saturated. After all, it was a fruit of heaven and earth. No matter how valuable it was, one's body would naturally develop resistance to it after consuming too much of it, and its effects would become weaker and weaker. The glorious sacred land was still intact, not only because of the glorious ladybug clan guarding it, but also because of the rarity of the treasures here. When other experts came here, they would at most pick some divine fruits. The glorious sacred land did not have any treasures, outstanding true treasures, or pinnacle true treasures. Instead, who would be willing to face millions of glorious ladybugs? Unlike the bloodsuckers, the glorious ladybugs would attack in groups, and their numbers were frighteningly large. Not every expert was like Lin Feng, who had a treasure like the source of the sacred land. Its energy was inexhaustible, and even the top 10 experts of the Origin Awakener list might die from exhaustion in the sea of ladybugs. Therefore, although the glorious ladybugs were the second treasure of the sacred land, their cost-performance ratio was not high. Very few experts were willing to take such a big risk to obtain the light energy, and it was very difficult to do so. Normally, after killing dozens or hundreds of glorious ladybugs, even if there was a source of light, it would be very weak and would dissipate quickly. Only those like Lin Feng, who killed tens of thousands of ladybugs, would have obvious effects. As for the third treasure, it was difficult. In fact, whether or not it even existed was still an unknown. The core of the glorious sacred land. Lin Feng knew very well that because of it, the glorious ladybug clan could be born. Because of it, the light energy here was endless and inexhaustible. Just like the source of the sacred land he had obtained before, a rare treasure could create a sacred land for cultivation. If I can obtain it, my light rune will have a core. Lin Feng was looking forward to it. The bloodline core was very important. For example, the source of the Holy Land seemed to have given life to the dark Mageweth. Not only did it have an inexhaustible supply of dark energy, but it also made cultivation and comprehension much easier. It also allowed one to control and mobilize the dark energy at will during battle. It was like a life with a soul, and it was on a completely different level. From the beginning, Lin Feng had come for the glorious Sacred Lands core. The evolution of his bloodline was his true goal. This was the most fundamental foundation that determined the upper limit of one's strength. For example, fifth sister Firefly's strength had risen from 50th to 30th on the Origin Awakening rankings. I just don't know if it really exists. Lin Feng wasn't sure. After all, not every kind of energy existed in the form of a treasure. Some were naturally formed, some were bestowed by the heavens, and some are unobtainable. The probability was about 50%. It was worth a try. If it really exists, then it must be in the deepest part of the Radiant's sacred land. That's where the luminous ladybug king cultivates. Regardless of success or failure, the god-level luminous ladybug king was something he had to face and defeat. Before my bloodline breaks through, with my strength, I only have a 20% chance. Now, it should be 40 to 50%. Lin Feng gripped Black Skeleton and took a deep breath. Endless light energy gathered in his body, and the light runes on his body shone brightly, extremely pure. Even if it wasn't for the core treasure of the Radiant Sacred Land, he was also looking forward to the battle with the luminous Ladybug King. This was the best way to test his current strength. Slowly going deeper, Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry. He killed the luminous Ladybug army along the way and absorbed the pure light origin. Although his and Firefly's bloodline couldn't evolve even if they killed all the remaining luminous ladybugs, this kind of pure bloodline origin energy was naturally better. The evolution of bloodline rarely happened overnight. It was usually accumulated over countless epochs. Moreover, these luminous ladybugs themselves were a potential threat. Although they were weak, if they attacked together with the luminous ladybug king, it was no laughing matter. The bug army always relied on numbers. They were different from high-grade races like the bloodsuckers. The luminous ladybugs didn't understand and wouldn't do that. Therefore, every luminous ladybug killed was equivalent to weakening the luminous ladybug king's power. Firefly was now completely obedient and didn't have any objections. Wherever Lin Feng went, she would follow. Following a rich man, not only could she drink soup, but she could also eat meat to her heart's content. She had absorbed a lot of light origin energy, and the time she took was exactly the same as Lin Feng. It was just that her bloodline wasn't as good as Lin Feng's, so she absorbed less. At this stage, the evolution of bloodline couldn't greatly increase the upper limit, but it was still a little bit. Lin Feng estimated that Firefly would know her upper limit even better. If there are no accidents, after absorbing all the energy here and stabilizing my bloodline, my upper limit should be able to reach second brother's level. Firefly was already very satisfied. Her main purpose in entering the chaotic void space this time was to improve her bloodline, and the treasures were secondary. No matter how powerful the treasures were, they couldn't change themselves. For martial artists whose strength was shackled, their bloodline and life level were the most important. Originally, after the defeat in the God-fallen world, she and her third sister had returned home, and there was basically no chance for them to advance. She didn't expect her seventh brother, Lin Feng, to give her such a big surprise. From a 50th place on the Origin Awakening list to the 30th place. This improvement could not be said to be small. Although it couldn't be compared to those powerhouses who were super lucky and reached the sky in a single step, it was already very good, and maybe there would be a surprise. Firefly looked at her seventh brother, Lin Feng, her beautiful eyes sparkling. This young man, who came from a Milky Way like her, seemed to have infinite magic. Since entering the Milky Way's human race, he had shocked her constantly. Now, she still couldn't see through him. "What's wrong, fifth sister?" Lin Feng turned around and asked curiously. "No, nothing." Firefly's pink cheeks blushed, and her heart jumped. She quickly changed the topic. "How long until we reach the core area?" "Soon." Lin Feng smiled and said, "I'm still going in circles." "Circles?" Firefly was stunned. Lin Feng nodded. "Kill more luminous ladybugs, and the pressure will be less." Firefly was very smart and naturally understood. She smiled and didn't say anything. She didn't need to ask, she just needed to believe. Lin Feng's speed wasn't fast. But the entire luminous Holy Land was not big, and the area filled with vigorous light energy couldn't be astonishingly big. When a number of luminous ladybugs exceeded 96%, Lin Feng had already found the core area. A mass of light energy gathered, like a giant energy shield. From the outside, it was bright and dazzling, and it was impossible to see what was inside, but the strength of the aura, it was enough to explain everything. Fifth sister, wait for me outside. Lin Feng held Black Skeleton in his hand, and his fighting spirit was strong. Be careful, Fifth sister Firefly warned. She also knew her own strength. If she entered together, she would be a burden. Okay, Lin Feng smiled slightly. Chapter 2106. Ta! Lin Feng entered the core of the glorious sacred ground, and his expression changed slightly. The entire area had formed a special environment. It was not like a volcanic eruption where the energy was concentrated at one point. Instead, it was like a boundless ocean. Every drop of water contained vigorous energy. Barrier. Lin Feng's gaze landed on the edge of the white light barrier. There was a series of complex secret runes connected together, containing endless mysteries. This barrier was of a very high level. He had seen it in the Thousand Heaven Path. Before, it was a type of secret technique using special abilities to display the characteristics of a formation. But it was different from a formation. There was no formation core, no formation eye. The barrier did not have any offensive capabilities. It was just a display of a special ability. The mysteries connected into a line, forming a world of its own. As expected, Lin Feng sighed lightly, shaking his head helplessly. His luck was very ordinary. The existence of the barrier basically cut off the possibility of treasures existing. This was a very obvious cultivation barrier, far more advanced than any barrier in the Origin Awakened continent. It did not need any treasures as the source to create a cultivation ground that gathered the essence of light energy. Such mysteries, he could not understand it now, nor would he try to. The chaotic void is indeed mysterious. To be able to create such a barrier, it was not easy, but even if he knew who created the barrier, it was meaningless. The important thing was to be sure there were no treasures here. Unless the glorious Ladybug King collected some treasures. Lin Feng smiled calmly. He did not have much hope. Even if the glorious Ladybug King collected treasures, it would probably be some inferior ones. The insect race did not have high intelligence, even if it was a special life form. The glorious Ladybug King relied more on its instincts to survive. Its intelligence was at the same level as the blood-sucking beast overlord. Let it collect treasures? There has to be a trace of hope. Lin Feng's expression was calm. There was no fluctuation in his emotions. The third treasure of the glorious sacred ground had only a 50% chance of existing. He had already prepared for the worst, hence he was not disappointed. At least, he had gained a lot from the glorious sacred ground. The divine rune of light had evolved to the fourth stage, and the divine rune of darkness was no longer restricted. It had already begun to merge with the ball of darkness, and the divine rune of darkness was increasing its bloodline. It was charging toward the fifth stage. This included his own saber art. Tears of Pandemonium's profundities had also been comprehended quite well through the numerous battles. Compared to when he first entered the glorious Holy Land, his improvement was more than double. Let's kill all the luminous ladybugs in the center of the barrier, then we'll fight the luminous Ladybug King. Lin Feng was filled with fighting spirit. He could sense that thousands of glorious ladybugs had appeared in the distance. Begin the final battle. Tears of Chaos. The path of the Dark Demon focused on offense, while the path of the Light Halo focused on support and control. The countless luminous ladybugs in the luminous Sacred Land could be said to be the best place to train. Lin Feng's understanding of the blade arts improved by leaps and bounds. In the past few days, Lin Feng had killed millions of luminous ladybugs, and there were less than 100,000 left. It would be easy for him to annihilate them all. The divine pattern of light had been upgraded to the fourth stage, and coupled with the inexhaustible dark energy, Lin Feng had enough capital to fight a war of attrition. Hiss, hiss, every time he killed a luminous ladybug. the divine pattern of light would absorb a little more. While improving his bloodline, it would also replenish his battle losses. Coupled with the luminous divine fruits, he would use battle to nourish battle. Depleted of energy? Lin Feng had never worried about that. The final light bloodline origin. Lin Feng naturally wouldn't waste it. Right now, it was easy to upgrade the dark magic pattern of light bloodline, but it was extremely difficult to upgrade the light divine pattern of light bloodline. Although there were many cultivation treasures in the meteorite chaotic void, some had been discovered long ago, while others had been used up. There were also many places that even the black dragon spine didn't know about. After all, the chaotic void was simply too big. As a special life form, the black dragon spine only occupied a small area and was king by itself. Chi, Peng, Lin Feng quickly entered the zone. Tears of chaos attacks were mixed with ashes of ashes, one heavy and one light, one fast and one slow, complementing each other. The combination of the two saber arts was extremely ingenious. The light energy and dark energy complemented each other and linked together, forming a unique resonance. That's the feeling. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. He could faintly sense that ashes of ashes had become even more powerful and perfectly combined. However, whether it was the way of light speed or the way of dark matter, he was still very far away from reaching 100,000 origin. It wasn't easy to take that crucial step. That feeling was very uncomfortable. It was as if he could clearly obtain it, as if it was within his reach, but there was an invisible barrier separating him from it, preventing him from obtaining it. My saber arts are already at a sufficient level, and my comprehension of ashes is already perfect. That's why I can sense the strongest power. It's a pity that my cultivation in the way of laws is still lacking. Lin Feng also felt that it was a pity. It would be difficult for him to unleash the strongest power of ashes in a short period of time. Even if he fused the sovereign blood main horn with the way of dark matter, he still didn't have a way to raise his way of light speed to 100,000 origin realm. Ashes had to be a combination of the way of light speed and the way of dark matter in order to unleash its strongest power. Tears of chaos, the way of dark demon, and the way of light halo each had their own division of labor, so it didn't affect them. I won't think too much about it for now. I'll raise my comprehension of tears of troubled times to perfection first. Just a little more. Lin Feng's dark demon inscriptions shone brightly, like an epiphyllum in hell. His blood-red eyes seemed to reflect the laws of the way of the dark demons. The sovereign blood cry horn constantly rumbled as it condensed. Tears of Troubled Times was a single target attack of the way of the dark demons. The way of halos focused on support and area of effect damage. As a result, even if his comprehension of the way of the dark demons reached 100,000 origin realm, he would still be able to unleash the full power of Tears of Troubled Times in single combat. Several tens of thousands of luminous ladybugs had been slain, and the light energy in the barrier had become even denser. Although the luminous ladybugs were undying, they needed time to be reborn. Something's off. Lin Feng suddenly discovered something strange. Even though every single luminous ladybug would turn into light energy after death, the same energy would be different. Normally, the luminous ladybugs would release a bloodline strengthening effect when they died. Even if every single ladybug was extremely weak, it would still be hidden no matter how little it was. However, the batch of luminous ladybugs that he had just killed had turned into pure light energy after their deaths. It did not contain any bloodline energy at all, not even the slightest bit. Could it be? Lin Feng's eyes lit up as his heart skipped a beat. Suddenly, swish, a streak of light shot over from the distance. It moved at a perfect speed, but it was controlled with great precision. It did not even cause the space to tremble. Its aura was perfectly contained, but its strength was greater than the luminous ladybugs. It's finally here. Lin Feng was overjoyed instead of being surprised. He smiled. He had been waiting for it for a very long time. Chapter 2107. The Luminous Ladybug King. It was the only luminous ladybug king in the entire luminous sacred land. It was a god-level existence. It was the king of the luminous ladybugs. It was pure white, as if it was the most perfect existence in the world. There were no impurities at all. The way of light was contained in it, just like its own body. This was a luminous ladybug king whose way of light had reached 100,000 origin realm. Basically, as long as a special life form reached the god level, there would always be one whose way of light had reached 100,000 origin realm. Some even had 2, 3, or even more. This is tricky. Different luminous ladybug kings had different strengths. Similar to the way of halos and the way of radiance, the luminous ladybug king that had reached 100,000 origin realm experts was relatively weak. As the fastest and most special of the 6 ways of light, the way of light speed was undoubtedly extremely powerful in terms of its usage and strength. Great Brahma was ineffective. Great Brahma was unable to restrain the luminous ladybug king whose way of light had reached 100,000 origin realm. Ordinary excellent true treasures were much weaker than god-level experts. Only top-tier excellent true treasures could unleash part of their power. In a battle between god-level experts, pinnacle true treasures were the mainstream. However, Lin Feng could also unleash the power of a pinnacle true treasure with the way of light and darkness. Pung! Metal clashed. What a hard shell. Lin Feng's wrist was a little numb as he was knocked back. As a special life form, the luminous ladybug king didn't have enough intelligence, so it relied on its body. The star-like light on its shell represented its innate ability in life form. Whoosh! The luminous ladybug king turned into a streak of light again and charged forward as if the previous collision didn't affect it at all. No matter how short the distance was, it could still reach the peak of its speed. Speed of light. So fast. Lin Feng was shocked. Ordinary warriors needed to accelerate to reach the speed of light, but the luminous ladybug king didn't need that at all. It only needed to move at the speed of light. Compared to its speed, the difference was like heaven and earth. However, the wings of warmth was also very fast. With a thought, the space of the wings of warmth became chaotic, slowing down the luminous ladybug king for an instant. That instant was enough for him to attack. But Peng! The moment Lin Feng struck with his saber, it was already too late. Not only was the luminous ladybug king fast, but its reaction was also very fast. The chaotic space could not stop it at all. So fast, Lin Feng's complexion changed. Around him, the boat was smashed apart. The wings of warmth wrapped around his body as quickly as possible, but his entire body was racked with pain, as if he had been struck by a meteor. Boom! Lin Feng was sent flying. No matter how strong his defense was, he was still injured by this collision. Impressive! Lin Feng sighed. As he retreated, Black Tongue had already transformed into streaks of flowing light as he activated the dust transformation technique. Each streak of light was accompanied by a streak of dark matter, resembling a continuous wave as it bombarded the luminous ladybug king with a unique rhythm. Pung! Pung! However, each of his attacks hit nothing but air. The luminous ladybug king was too fast. When a certain ability reached the limit, it would become extremely terrifying. As a special life form, even if Lin Feng's way of light reached 100,000 origin realm experts, he would not be able to achieve what the radiant ladybug had done. It had already used its innate ability to the limit. Its speed was truly terrifying. No matter how fast his attack was, the energy needed to be gathered at the very least. No matter how powerful the origin of the sacred land was, it would still take time to gather all the dark energy. Speed was only a relative term. Compared to the luminous ladybug king, which maintained the speed of light at all times, his speed was much slower. As a result, he was unable to truly unleash his attacks. Its defense isn't so strong that it's unbreakable. Lin Feng knew very well that the only time he had truly struck the luminous ladybug king was his first attack. However, he had been the one to suffer that time. From afar, the luminous ladybug king had erupted with power that included the force of the impact, which was why it had directly shattered his attack. However, the luminous ladybug king had also been partially injured by that attack. Against an opponent like that, it was very difficult to achieve victory through skill. It maintained the speed of light at all times, and it was small as well. It was basically impossible to find a weakness. Clashing head-on was the most direct method. Clang! Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. He stood where he was and no longer attacked blindly. Once his attack was dodged, the luminous Ladybug King would directly erupt with an attack, and he would not be able to attack a second time. Since that was the case, he might as well switch from offense to defense. Wear him down. Who's afraid of who? I can block its strongest attack. Lin Feng was extremely confident. In terms of endurance and attrition, he was absolutely confident. Swish! The luminous Ladybug King turned into a streak of light and attacked Lin Feng once again. It maintained the speed of light, just like before. It did not even cause space to tremble. Its cultivation level was already perfect, but having no openings did not mean it was perfect. Tears of chaos. Lin Feng had already gathered energy. The other benefit of not attacking blindly was that he had enough time to gather energy. Light energy and dark energy clashed. Lin Feng's blood-red eyes burned with battle intent and excitement. The power of the Olive Laws was on full display. The luminous Ladybug King's 100,000 Origin Realm experts lay in its speed. His 100,000 Origin Realm experts were attacking. Boom! It was a vast and continuous battle. Lin Feng and the luminous Ladybug King engaged in an intense battle. After probing for a while, they fell into an anxious state. Lin Feng no longer gave the luminous Ladybug King any good opportunities to attack directly. Every single attack was a direct clash. There were still several tens of thousands of luminous ladybugs waiting for an opportunity to attack within the barrier, but none of them were able to approach him. The attacks of Tears of Chaos and the Way of Halos were enough to kill a group of ordinary luminous ladybugs. The light energy from killing them was just enough to make up for the light energy consumed. As for dark energy, Lin Feng did not lack it at all. At the peak of the fourth phase, with the origin of the sacred land as the core, Lin Feng was confident in his strategy. The battle lasted for 7 days and 7 nights. The luminous Ladybug King also possessed a geographical advantage. It was small, so it did not consume much energy. It would not run out of energy if it faced any godhead, yet it just happened to encounter Lin Feng. Flee? The luminous Ladybug King would not flee. This was its territory, the place where it had lived since it was born. Guarding its territory was its instinct. Apart from attacking invaders time and time again, it would not do anything else. The luminous Ladybug King's battle prowess had been greatly depleted. It was difficult to maintain the Way of Halos of Light. Not only did it cause space to tremble, but it gradually became unable to maintain the speed of light. Its body flickered with white light. Its presence was weak. Lin Feng remained as immovable as a mountain, as steady as a rock. This was actually the best opportunity to kill it. It was as easy as flipping his hand. However, Lin Feng did not do that. Chapter 2108. A Special Energy Life Form. After fighting for 7 days and 7 nights, Lin Feng had a deep understanding of the luminous Ladybug King. It had basically broken away from the insectoid category. Although it still had the insectoid reproductive ability, its essence had been purified and changed. Energy life forms were the main ones, with insectoid life forms as support. Subdue. This was Lin Feng's true goal. Unlike Momo, the luminous Ladybug King was a true top life form in the void turbulence, already at the deity level. Perhaps it was not as intelligent as the blood-maned Beast King, not even as intelligent as Momo, but because of this, he had a chance. A special life form with intelligence at the deity level was impossible to subdue, especially since he himself had yet to reach the deity level. But the luminous Ladybug King did not have high intelligence. A deity-level fighter. Lin Feng would not miss this opportunity. The luminous Ladybug King could create luminous ladybugs. Basically, the luminous ladybugs it created were no different from the ones in the luminous sacred land. They were very similar. The only difference was that the luminous ladybugs it created did not have bloodline origin energy, only pure light energy. If he could subdue this luminous ladybug king, it would be the same as having an army of insectoids. These luminous ladybugs were not a threat to him, but that might not be the case for other experts. For example, the fifth sister Firefly did not need thousands of luminous ladybugs. Even 100 luminous ladybugs could drown her in a sea of bugs. Having a luminous ladybug king was the same as having a faction. Punk. Lin Feng once again clashed with the luminous ladybug king, weakening it with every attack. Subduing it when it was at its weakest point would have a higher chance of success. Boom, boom, boom. The luminous ladybug king did not know fatigue, nor did it know what fear was. Even if its aura was getting weaker and weaker, it still guarded its territory until the very last moment. Lin Feng floated in the air, looking down at the luminous ladybug king that was already crawling on the ground, its luster extremely dim, and forcibly subdued it. Pung! The backlash from the depths of his soul made Lin Feng's expression change slightly. Failure. Try again. Lin Feng did not give up. Failure. Another failure. Even if the luminous ladybug king no longer had any combat power and its energy was depleted, it was still a special life form with an extremely high life level. It was not easy to tame it. My life order is too low. Lin Feng frowned slightly. No matter how many times he tried, the result would be the same. He would only stand a chance if he broke through to the level of a god. If that's the case, I'll just refine it, Lin Feng said to himself. Since it was an energy life form, he could naturally refine it. After refining it, the luminous ladybug king would turn into his own energy and the insectoid army plan would be ruined. However, that was the only thing he could do at the moment. Otherwise, he would have to kill the luminous ladybug king. If he had to choose one of the two, refining it would be better. Boom! Lin Feng's soul directly smashed over. Although his life rating was not as high as the luminous ladybug king's, he had a 100% advantage in terms of soul power. His soul was already very strong, and it was even stronger after being nurtured by the 10,000 origin mustard stone. It was more than enough to surpass most god-level experts. Even when the luminous ladybug king was at its peak, its soul was far from Lin Feng's, let alone when it was on its last breath. His soul was already at its weakest point. Without any fancy moves, he broke through the luminous ladybug king's weak defense directly. Compared to subduing it, refining it under soul suppression was easier. The luminous ladybug king's soul level was far inferior to the blood mantis beast king's. In an instant, Lin Feng destroyed its remaining consciousness completely. Lin Feng paused slightly. Since it's an energy life form, what if I use it as the core of the light god pattern? Lin Feng did as he thought. The luminous ladybug king also possessed astonishing light energy, or it would not have been able to fight against him for 7 days and 7 nights. The reason why it had lost was because it had run out of energy, but it was also because of the repeated clashes that had taken place. If I succeed, the luminous ladybug king will be no less than the origin of Holy Land. Lin Feng was clear. A god-level energy life form was no less valuable than a pinnacle true treasure. Lin Feng focused his mind and tried to merge the two into one. The light god pattern on his body glowed brightly. It didn't repel the luminous ladybug king at all. It was a part of light, so there wouldn't be any repulsion. The luminous ladybug king's soul also seemed to have found a place to stay. It was as if it had moved from one nest to another. Success. Lin Feng smiled. The light god pattern glowed brightly as if it had a soul. The feeling of excitement was even better than the dark god pattern. With the luminous ladybug king as the core, waves of light rippled out, making one feel relaxed and happy. Suddenly, boom, his head shook and Lin Feng's eyes widened. Endless information poured into his mind as the luminous ladybug king merged with him. It was the most direct path of light speed, the most perfect path of light speed. It was endless. The luminous ladybug king's ability was given by the heavens. After Lin Feng refined it, it naturally belonged to Lin Feng. The path of light speed, 100,000 origin realm. Phew! Lin Feng let out a long sigh. He was extremely satisfied. It was completely unexpected. He didn't think that the light god pattern would not only be fused, but also receive such a great gift. This was much easier than refining the sovereign bloodbane horn. He directly refined the soul and returned it to his heart, swallowing it like food. However, he still needed some time to completely digest it, and he still needed to condense an all of laws before he could truly complete it. I'll succeed in a few decades at most. Lin Feng smiled. A few decades was nothing more than the snap of a finger to a cultivator. Comprehending his new body, the light god pattern and the dark god pattern complemented each other. The two completely different energies intertwined. They seemed to be extreme, but they strangely fused together. What is lost on the swings, what is gained on the swings. Although I've lost the luminous Ladybug King's ability to reproduce, I've obtained the core of the light god pattern, which is even more valuable. I've also obtained 100,000 origin energies from the path of light speed, which has fundamentally increased my battle prowess. And the luminous Ladybug King's ability to divide hasn't been completely lost. Lin Feng pressed his chest, feeling the core of the light god pattern throbbing like a pulse. He smiled. It was still an energy life form. It was just that its current body was his own light god pattern. As long as it was given enough energy, it could still create luminous ladybugs. However, the amount of energy required was enormous. For the time being, it's enough to be a core for me. Lin Feng swept through the core area. After confirming that there was nothing left, he left. Chapter 2109. Did you find the treasure in the core area, seventh brother? Fifth sister Firefly asked anxiously and expectantly, her two big eyes flashing. No, Lin Feng said frankly. Ah. Fifth sister Firefly was startled, and then she comforted, if you don't, then don't. After all, it's fate to get the treasure. If it's fated, then it will be. If it's not fated, then don't force it. Moreover, our trip to the glorious Holy Land this time was already worth the price. Lin Feng smiled. Firefly's eyes were sharp, and her almond-shaped eyebrows straightened, and she immediately said angrily, Seventh brother, you become so bold now. You even dare to lie to me. I didn't lie to you, fifth sister. Lin Feng pointed to the front and explained with a smile. You see, the white light barrier is still there, and the energy has not decreased. If I obtain the treasure, the surrounding light energy should have decreased sharply. That's true. Fifth sister Firefly looked thoughtful. However, Lin Feng dragged out his words. I didn't get the core treasure, but I did get some other treasures. Other treasures? Fifth sister Firefly was slightly surprised, and she curiously looked inside. There's still good things hidden there? Is it the treasure of the luminous Ladybug King? No, it's the luminous Ladybug King itself, Lin Feng said. Fifth sister Firefly was startled, and she did not understand. Lin Feng did not say much, and the divine pattern of light could not help but shine with a smile. A white light vaguely appeared in front of his chest, like a luminous ladybug condensed from the purest light, and there was a bright star on its back. At this time, it was like the center of the endless stars, connecting everything. Fifth sister Firefly's eyes widened, and she was so shocked that she could not close her mouth. I subdued and refined it. Lin Feng said, although it's an insect life form, it's also an energy life form, and it happened to be compatible with my bloodline, so I fused with it. Lin Feng did not say much, and he only said a few words. But in Firefly's ears, it was like a stormy wave. She was not an ordinary person, but a 9-star expert, and her experience was quite good. The more it was understated, the more difficult it was. What a joke. No matter how weak the brilliant Radiant Ladybug King was, it was still a king-level existence within the chaotic void. Its strength was equivalent to the top 10 experts on the Origin Awakening list. Not only did 7th brother Lin Feng defeat it, he even refined it and used it for himself. How terrifying. Right, 5th sister, are you interested in fusing with it? Lin Feng suddenly remembered and asked. Me? Fifth sister Firefly's eyes widened. Can I do that too? Lin Feng nodded. There's only one luminous ladybug king, but there are many ordinary luminous ladybugs, and many of them are close to the level of deities. God's spirit realm. Firefly tilted her head, looking confused. Lin Feng said the top 10 of the Origin Awakening list. God-level warriors and God-level warriors were the difference in power between the universe's warriors. Aside from a few warriors who had received inheritances, most warriors didn't know about this. Firefly finally understood. Her beautiful eyes widened. Really? Yes, because the luminous ladybug itself isn't very intelligent, and those that haven't become a luminous ladybug king are even less intelligent. Lin Feng said, you only need to heavily injure it and suppress its soul consciousness to the minimum to refine it. Looking at fifth sister Firefly, who still didn't understand, Lin Feng smiled and grabbed her. Let's go, I'll take you in. Bloodline fusion was like putting on clothes for one's bloodline. Although the luminous ladybug king hadn't become a luminous ladybug king, it was already good enough for Firefly, who didn't have a bloodline fusion with anything. It was like putting on a cloth. It couldn't compare to a brocade dress, but even if Firefly had the luminous ladybug king, she couldn't forcefully refine it. Her soul was far inferior to Lin Feng's. The luminous ladybug that was close to the level of deities had taken a lot of effort to fuse with it. Perfect fifth sister. Lin Feng looked at the blushing fifth sister Firefly, who was so excited that she couldn't speak, and smiled. This luminous ladybug is the closest to becoming a luminous ladybug king. The luminous ladybug that has the highest chance of becoming a king is in the core area. As long as you give it enough nutrients, it will continue to grow. Maybe it will become a king one day. Yes, yes. Firefly nodded happily. She didn't know what to say, but she was very excited. Becoming a king or not, she didn't even think about it. It was too far away. She was already very satisfied with her current improvement. Fusing with the luminous ladybug bloodline made her bloodline soar. Not only did it increase the upper limit of her strength, but it also directly upgraded her combat power to a new level. How could she not be excited? There are still many luminous ladybugs and a remaining light origin essence here. Let's cultivate here for a while. Lin Feng looked around. The light origin essence here was very pure and would be of great help to Firefly. However, it was not very useful to him, but it was better than nothing. He could use this time to focus on fusing with the way of lightspeed and reach the origin realm. They settled down and cultivated. 10 years had passed in the blink of an eye, but it had allowed Firefly to perfectly fuse with her bloodline, allowing her to reach a whole new level. Lin Feng's way of lightspeed had reached the origin realm as well. Although it was not as proficient as the luminous ladybug king, he had made great progress. His comprehension of the way of lightspeed was much deeper than great perfection. 100,000 origin realm is the true starting point. Lin Feng sighed emotionally. Ignoring the secret technique, the foundation of 100,000 origin realm could be divided into many levels. For example, his foundation in the way of lightspeed was far too lacking compared to the luminous ladybug king. If I can be like the luminous ladybug king and maintain lightspeed at all times, my battle prowess will increase by at least 10 times. Lin Feng smiled. He knew that this was still too far away and could not be accomplished overnight. Right now, it was already quite impressive that he could use the way of lightspeed on his footwork to increase his speed. After refining this blood swallow horn, I'll refine the way of dark matter next. With the way of lightspeed at 100,000 origin realm, the obliterating heavenly blade will reach its limit. At the same time, with the fusion of the two fastest ways of the elements, my foundation will undergo a fundamental transformation. Lin Feng gently sighed as a gleam of light flashed through his eyes. Two different alls of laws formed in his body. They were the way of lightspeed and the way of dark demon. The inscriptions of light and the inscriptions of darkness intertwined and fused perfectly, reaching the 6th level of the foundation. In terms of fusion, it's completely surpassed the 7th level of the fusion of other elements. My bloodline has stabilized, and my battle prowess has reached the level of gods. Lin Feng clenched Black Bear. Now, he truly possessed the right to challenge the top 10 of the Origin Awakener rankings. Even he did not know what level his strength had reached. Then let's prove it in battle, Lin Feng smiled. It was time to enter the God-fallen world. The Furnace of Experts. Chapter 2110. Setting off again, Lin Feng and Firefly went straight to the God-fallen world. The heavenly meteor was the core area of the void turbulence. It was said that there was a great secret hidden there. Not only the experts of the Origin Awakened continent, but the special life forms of the heavenly meteor turbulence were also looking for it. However, the God-fallen world was rarely opened. Only after 10 small reincarnations had been opened, which was 100 ordinary reincarnations, would a large reincarnation appear and open the God-fallen world. Legend has it that this great secret is hidden in the meteorite vortex, Fifth Sister Firefly said. So that's how it is. Lin Feng nodded. Firefly said, after the Patriarch entered the God-fallen world, he talked with other special life forms and learned that it is the key to leaving the Origin Awakened continent. Some say it is the perfect inheritance, and some say it is a super treasure. There are many different opinions. Lin Feng smiled. No matter what the secret was, this was his last trip to the void turbulence, and also his last stop in the Origin Awakened continent. How many meteorite vortexes are there? Lin Feng asked curiously. I don't know, Firefly said. According to the Patriarch, a meteorite vortex is born in every small reincarnation. 10 small reincarnations means 10 meteorite vortexes. I don't know how many meteorite vortexes will be born in the large reincarnation. Anyway, when I left, several meteorite vortexes were already unearthed. Lin Feng nodded. They contained the great secret of the void turbulence and were few in number. No wonder the competition was so fierce. Before the large reincarnation opened, there were only 3 meteorite vortexes in the Origin Awakened continent. Obviously, the other 7 had fallen into the hands of the special life forms of the void turbulence. It was too difficult to snatch a meteorite vortex from the hands of the special life forms. Therefore, the Milky Way's human race became the target of public criticism. Of the 3 known meteorite vortexes, 1 was missing and was suspected to be in the hands of the Heaven's Mandate race. The other was in the hands of the Emperor Star Pavilion's #1 expert, Yin Fagia. Who would dare to provoke him? Third Sister said that our purpose is to safely deliver this meteorite vortex to the Patriarch. Then we will succeed. Firefly said, we will try our best not to get involved in other things, but we can't get involved anyway. Looking at Lin Feng, the 5th Sister Firefly said, I know 7th Brother is ambitious, and you also have enough strength and confidence. But right now, in terms of strength and experience, 7th Brother is still a little bit behind the Patriarch. It's better to give the meteorite vortex to the Patriarch. Understand, Lin Feng said. Even if he was stronger than the clan leader, the meteorite vortex should be used by the clan leader. Not to mention, his current strength was indeed weaker than the clan leader's. Aren't there still many meteorite vortexes unearthed? Maybe I can snatch one? Lin Feng smiled. Firefly, who had a serious look on her face just now, rolled her eyes and said, 7th Brother, aren't you being too whimsical? Snatching the meteorite vortex? You can't even compete with the super experts on the Origin Awakening list, not to mention the many special life form experts. The clan leader said that the special life form experts are much more numerous and powerful than our Origin Awakening continent's experts. Oh, Lin Feng was surprised. He had estimated that there were many special life form experts, but it was the first time he had heard that their top experts were stronger than the Origin Awakening continent's experts. But thinking about it, special life forms were naturally gifted, and with such a top cultivation place, it was hard not to be strong. That's interesting. Lin Feng was looking forward to it more and more. The feeling of competing with experts was enough to make his blood boil. God-fallen world. Countless meteorites fell like meteors, exploding from time to time. The power was so great that it made one's heart tremble. If one was hit directly, Even a 9-star expert would be seriously injured, if not killed. If the heavenly meteorite chaotic lands were said to be dangerous places where 8-star experts could barely survive, then the God-fallen world was a forbidden ground for 8-star experts. If one came, one would die. Even an ordinary 9-star expert wouldn't have an easy time surviving. Therefore, usually a godly spirit expert would lead a small team, such as the Origin Awakening continent's major factions and special lifeform clans. Of course, there were also many who acted alone, such as the lone experts of Origin Awakening continent. Dressed in a green robe, he looked valiant and formidable, with a dragon scabbard on his back. The green-robed man used the star steps, and every time his figure changed, it was incomparably strange, as if he was singing a song, dancing to the music. The strongest lone expert, Li Qing. He was ranked 3rd on the Origin Awakening list, just below Yin, Fa, Jia, and Ci. Legend had it that he had once destroyed a faction by himself. His name was already a legend in Origin Awakening continent, and his nickname was Azure Dragon King. All the major factions gave him face, treating him as a distinguished guest. But that was then, and this was now. This group of people, back then, they welcomed people with smiles and hospitality. But today, they're using weapons and spears, scheming openly, and using all kinds of methods. Li Qing's figure moved continuously, leaving behind an azure dragon phantom in the void, like a dragon soaring into the sky. Such a movement technique was truly breathtaking. Didn't I just snatch a meteorite vortex? All of them treat me as if I killed their father. Li Qing was carefree, not caring at all. In terms of survival ability and escape methods, there were only a handful of people in Origin Awakening continent who were stronger than him. If he had not provoked everyone's anger and been surrounded, why would he need to escape like this? He could have just killed. Speaking of which, how many meteorite vortexes are there? 15, 16, or even more. Li Qing moved with the wind, like a graceful swordsman. His long black hair reflected his handsome face, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, looking relaxed and natural. Even if he was in the middle of an army of 10,000, he was still so calm and composed, confident and at ease. Li Qing's eyes lit up. In an instant, a huge figure with boundless domineering aura appeared in front of him. His eyes were blood red, and he was determined to kill. His body was covered in ferocious scales, and there were 2 blood-devouring horns on his head. The blood-devouring Beast King, Ti Lu. Don't you have a meteorite vortex? Ti Lu, why are you here to snatch it? Li Qing directly dodged Ti Lu's claw that tore through space and shouted, "What meteorite vortex?" Ti Lu's eyes were bloodshot. "You despicable and shameless Azure Dragon King. You massacred my race, injured my second brother, and snatched away my ancestor's blood-devouring horn. I will tear you to shreds." Boom, boom, boom. Ti Lu seemed to have gone mad, attacking wildly. However, Li Qing was confused. As he dodged and retreated, he could not help asking, "What did you say?" "Ti Lu, did you recognize the wrong person?" "That's right. It is you, Li Qing," Ti Lu roared. "Aside from you, who else could it be? Die." Ti Lu's attacks were horrifying. The blood-devouring beasts were a race that excelled at fighting in the first place. The blood-devouring Beast King went without saying. Furthermore, Ti Lu had 2 blood-devouring horns. His strength was not something that Ti Lu could compare to. When it rains, it pours. What is going on? Li Qing sighed helplessly. Li Qing raised his sword to block, frowning slightly. There were still pursuers behind him. Instantly, Li Qing moved like an azure dragon. His sword light flickered, and he did not linger to fight, directly fleeing. This angered Ti Lu, who gave chase in extreme rage. However, given his movement technique, he could not catch up to Li Qing. Soon he lost him. Goddamned Azure Dragon King. I will never let you off. Chapter 2111. Lin Feng naturally did not know that the Azure Dragon King Li Qing had become his scapegoat. T1 had been muddle-headed, mistaking Lin Feng for Li Feng. When Ti Nuo heard this, she was even more confused. Among the experts on the Origin Awakening list, who was called Li Feng, Comparing the description of a young man with a head of black hair, Teal easily connected Li Qing to the Li Feng that Teal had mentioned. He thought that Teal must have heard wrongly and mistakenly believed that Teal had misheard him. Azure Dragon King Li Qing, the strongest loner. Lin Feng looked at Firefly. Yes, he is a great swordsman who upholds justice. He is different from the other experts on the Origin Awakening list. Fifth Sister Firefly's beautiful eyes were filled with stars. He is the person I admire the most. He is handsome and strong. Lin Feng laughed involuntarily. Fifth Sister, you are almost drooling. What are you saying? Firefly's face turned red as she rebuked. It is just pure admiration. Admiration, you know? Yes, I know. Lin Feng nodded. Fifth Sister Firefly snorted. He is our friend, not our enemy. He is one of the few friends we have. Lin Feng nodded. Remember, in any case, the top 10 experts on the Origin Awakening list are all enemies, except for Li Qing and Yin, Fa Suixin. Every man serves his own master. Firefly sighed. Everyone belongs to a faction. Being kind to the enemy is being cruel to yourself. It is no wonder they are like this. Understand? Lin Feng naturally understood. On the battlefield, there is no need to talk about benevolence or righteousness. The winner was king. Azure Dragon King Li Qing was a loner who was unrestrained, so he did not care. He would not be involved in the disputes between factions. On the other hand, many special life forms were more peaceful and did not like fighting. Even if they met on a narrow path, they would not fight. For example, the Poison Spider Tree King. In the Poison Spider Danger Zone, the Poison Spider Tree would attack because it instinctively protected its territory. However, after becoming a king, it could move freely without any restrictions. It did not need to protect its territory anymore and also had basic intelligence. Plant life forms were generally peaceful, and very few of them were extremely violent. Conflicts of interest are actually understandable. For example, when a meteorite vortex was unearthed, everyone would naturally fight until their heads bled. The most annoying thing is a conflict of personal feelings. Firefly snorted and was extremely angry. Void Dragon Race and Fatal Limit. Lin Feng knew who Fifth Sister was talking about. The two forces had joined forces and shattered the human tribe of the Milky Way. If he had not arrived in time, the third sister and the fifth sister would not have been able to escape death. This debt would definitely be settled when the time came. With you, seventh brother, and the patriarch, we have two powerhouses in the top 10 of the Origin Awakening list. Let's see if they still dare to provoke us. Firefly clenched her fists and raised her chin proudly. Also, my strength has increased by several times. When I enter the God-fallen world again, I will definitely give them a big surprise. Yes, I was shocked. Lin Feng smiled. In any case, he already had enemies everywhere. The Destiny race, the blood succubus beasts, and all of them were extremely deadly. Now that he had entered the God-fallen world and was surrounded by enemies, he did not care anymore. I hope there are still meteorite vortexes left. I can obtain one. Since he planned to enter the God-fallen world, Lin Feng was naturally ambitious. If there were no meteorite vortexes, then he would go and snatch one. 100 years flew by. When a refinement of the sovereign blood succubus horn, which contained the Tao of Oblivion, was about to end, Lin Feng and Firefly finally arrived at the God-fallen world. This was with Tang, she guiding the way and taking a shortcut. Otherwise, they would have spent another 100 years. We're finally here. Lin Feng looked ahead. It was a transparent world, like a miniature universe, containing endless mysteries. The spatial energy was extremely lively. This was the core of space, close to the border of the God-fallen world. He could feel the turbulent spatial laws energy, along with other elemental energies, forming a perfect resonance. Taking out the God-fallen token, Lin Feng directly opened it. It was like the Void Gate. It was the same type of material, but the God-fallen token was of a higher level. A bright circular path opened, and Lin Feng and Firefly entered. The path opened by the God-fallen token will be maintained for a short period of time, so many people could enter at the same time without any hindrance. A spatial path. Lin Feng felt as if he had entered the interior of the Origin Awakened continent, from the outside of a circle to the inside of the circle. Endless elemental energies wrapped around the spatial energy, and he felt as if he had been shackled, with pressure pressing down on him from all directions. Whoosh, the black vortex spun rapidly, and the feeling of excitement attacked him again. To it, this place was like a fish back in water. Rumble. A crack appeared in space, and a huge meteor appeared, blasting out from outside the spatial crack. Lin Feng was slightly startled, but he immediately raised his saber and slashed. Chi! The saber energy pierced through the sky, but the huge meteor's impact was terrifying. Even though it was struck by the saber energy, it only cracked a little and was not split open. A cosmic meteor? Lin Feng's warm wings flapped, and at the same time the space became chaotic, he had already dodged the meteor's impact. With a loud boom, the meteor fell from the sky like a huge rock into the sea. Although it created a huge splash, it did not damage the sea itself. Boom, boom, boom. The first cosmic meteor had just fallen, and in an instant, a second, third, and fourth cosmic meteor fell in succession, like the wrath of the heavens. Lin Feng did not dodge, but faced them head-on. Since he had chosen to enter the God-fallen world, he naturally had to face such a situation. Hei Tang emitted a pitch-black light, condensing two different types of elemental energies, and began to make intimate contact with the cosmic meteor. Pung! Lin Feng groaned as he was sent flying by the powerful impact of the cosmic meteor. But this time, the cosmic meteor was split into two, and the earth collapsed. As expected, a deity's attack is enough to protect me. Lin Feng's feet landed on the ground, sinking deeply. There were many meteors falling from the sky in the God-fallen world, and now was the perfect time to test it out. Otherwise, when he encountered a meteor falling from the sky in battle, he would appear to be flustered and at a loss. It was necessary to prepare beforehand. So abnormal. Beside him, Firefly's beautiful eyes were wide open, and she could not help but mumble. Apart from the top 10 experts of the Origin Awakened list, who had the ability to shatter a cosmic meteor, just the force of impact alone was already so terrifying. These are indeed meteors from the universe. Lin Feng's gaze was like a torch as he looked at the meteors scattered on the ground. The energy contained inside was completely different from the chaotic void. Including the composition of the meteors, the remnant energy, it was clearly different from the chaotic void. It was like a demon god and a divine beast. They looked the same, but in fact they were two completely different species. Did they really come from a universe? How do they come in? Why can the meteors come in, but the experts of the Origin Awakened continent cannot leave? Where's the entrance? Lin Feng had many questions in his heart. The God-fallen world was very mysterious, and his intuition told him that the answers to these questions were related to the meteor vortex. Chapter 21:12. It was normal that he couldn't find an answer. After all, he had just entered the God-fallen world and hadn't even traveled through 10% of the God-fallen world. Lin Feng's aura slowly spread out as he tried to explore the surroundings, but the resistance was very strong, especially the spatial energy. The spatial energy here was even stronger than the inner region of the Destiny world. I might be at a disadvantage if I fight the Destiny race here. Lin Feng was a bit worried. He didn't specialize in the Tao of space. In terms of spatial talent, he wasn't bad, but there was still a gap between him and those experts with top-tier spatial talent. Most importantly, there were specializations. He specialized in the Tao of light and darkness and blade arts, while others specialized in the Tao of space. Lord Brahma's wings of warmth can make up for it, but it's only an outstanding true treasure. Lin Feng wasn't conceited. He didn't become arrogant because of his accomplishments outside. This was a furnace where true top-tier experts competed. The battlefield of godly spirit experts. Outside, at most, it was just a warm-up. The opponents here, like the Radiant Ladybug King, were probably weak. There are 3 enemies. First, the experts of the Origin Awakened list, especially the Destiny race, the Void Dragon race, and the extreme fatal race. They won't rest until they die. Second, the special life forms of the origin awakened continent. Third, the experts of the God-fallen world. The second and third could be considered the same type. In terms of numbers, the origin awakened continent had more special life forms. In terms of experts, the God-fallen world's experts were the peak. According to Fifth Sister, there were existences even more terrifying than Yin Fagia among the God-fallen world's experts. As for the Origin Awakened list experts, whether it was in terms of numbers or peak strength, they were lacking compared to the second and third. However, they were all experienced and cunning. They couldn't be underestimated. Fifth Sister, how we find the Patriarch now? Lin Feng asked. Their current goal was to deliver the meteorite vortex to the Patriarch. Everything else was secondary. There's a sensory stone. Firefly took out a jade green spirit stone. As energy seeped in, the spirit stone emitted a thin layer of light. Firefly held the sensory stone with both hands and opened her beautiful eyes. There, good. Lin Feng smiled. He was happy that he had found his target, but he was also relieved that the clan leader and the others were still safe and sound. Now that he had a target, he naturally didn't need to waste any more effort. He only needed to follow the sensing stone. The God-fallen world was so big. If one really wanted to deliberately search for two people, it was actually quite difficult. The two of them moved swiftly. Meteors falling from the sky in the God-fallen world happened from time to time. It was like a magnetic field, sucking in huge meteors from the outer space. However, Lin Feng, who had experienced it before, was able to block it easily. Lin Feng's movements were like a streak of light. His comprehension of the way of light had reached the level of 100,000 Origin Realm experts. Although Lin Feng had not reached the same level as the luminous ladybug, he was still much stronger than before. His control over speed, movement, and rhythm had all clearly increased. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Lin Feng calmly dodged the attacks while pulling the surprised firefly with one hand. The radiant wings would distort space from time to time, so he basically did not need to do anything to remain unscathed. If he really could not dodge in time, he would use his blade to take the attacks head-on. With the attack power of a godhead, he could definitely protect himself. Seventh brother, you seem to be even more relaxed than the clan leader. Firefly sighed in amazement. It's different, Lin Feng smiled. The clan leader had to take care of 3 people at that time. I only needed to take care of you, Fifth Sister. Firefly's beautiful eyes flickered as she asked curiously, why is your Tao of light different from mine? Seventh brother, I feel that your Tao of light has reached a whole new level. Is this the great perfection? Although Firefly specialized in the way of light, her way of light had not reached great perfection. No, it's a realm above great perfection, Lin Feng said. Fifth Sister, you don't understand because there's a difference of 2 realms. A difference of 1 realm could be easily seen. However, a difference of 2 realms was a fundamental difference. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. There's a realm above great perfection. Firefly's eyes widened. She exclaimed, that's impossible. Lin Feng was about to reply when his eyes suddenly lit up. His figure flickered slightly and changed direction. His entire body spun like a top. His reaction speed was extremely fast. Firefly was still in a daze. She did not know what had happened. Suddenly, boom, a ball of blazing purple flames inexplicably emerged from the ground. In an instant, it spread and burned the entire surface of the earth. It was like a volcanic eruption. However, there was no warning. Hiss! Firefly sucked in a breath. Her beautiful eyes widened. At this time, Lin Feng had already retreated to the distant sky with her. He looked down at the area that had suddenly erupted. Endless flames sprayed into the sky, burning the entire sky into a fiery red color. The most terrifying thing was that the power of these flames was terrifying. If he had been just a little slower, he would have been burned to ashes by the overwhelming might of the flames. The God-fallen world is indeed the God-fallen world. There are dangers everywhere. Lin Feng did not sense it earlier. This was because the energy fluctuations of this aura were not strong. There were no signs of life. However, his sixth sense told him that there was danger. However, with his current strength, even if he did not have a sixth sense, it would not be difficult for him to block the eruption of this underground volcano. Looking at Fifth Sister Firefly's pale face, Lin Feng asked softly, "Are you okay, Fifth Sister?" I'm fine," Fifth Sister Firefly muttered. Her beautiful eyes looked down, and she quickly said, "Quick, seventh brother, go down." "What's wrong?" Lin Feng did not understand. Firefly said, "The patriarch said that whenever a phenomenon occurs in the God-fallen world, there must be a treasure unearthed. The bigger the phenomenon, the more precious the treasure. Although the eruption of this underground volcano cannot compare to the phenomenon of the meteor vortex, it is at least an outstanding supreme treasure." "Oh!" Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He did not know that there was such a thing. "Then wait for me here, Fifth Sister," Lin Feng said. "Okay." Firefly answered obediently. She knew that she could not help. If she went down, she would be a burden to Lin Feng. He would have to protect her. Whoosh! Lin Feng shot out like an arrow and returned to the ground in an instant. The flat ground from before had now become a furnace of flames. It was like a mountain of flames. The temperature was enough to burn an 8-star expert to ashes. The power of nature was the most terrifying. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lin Feng moved like a streak of light. Even though the entire area was covered in flames, he did not touch them at all. After his comprehension of the way of light reached 100,000 Origin Realm experts, Lin Feng's control over his movement had reached the pinnacle. "Treasure?" Lin Feng glanced around and released his aura. Whoosh! Through the layers of flames, he looked at the center of the mountain of flames. There seemed to be a resplendent light that covered the endless flames. It was like a pearl that stood there quietly. "It's it." Lin Feng dove down. Chapter 21:13. Flame Pearl. Lin Feng didn't know its function, but the more treasures he had, the better. Lin Feng unfurled the wings of warmth, spreading out endless flames. Even as they disrupted space, they protected him as he went straight for that resplendent pearl. Something's not right. Lin Feng was shocked at the speed of light. He vaguely felt that there was something wrong with the flame pearl. His body shifted inconceivably, bending at a 90-degree angle. His instinctive reaction allowed him to avoid the danger. Bang! The moment he shifted, the flame pearl shot out endless flames. It was even more terrifying than the first wave of flames. Its power was enough to turn a 9-star expert into ashes. Special life form. Lin Feng's right hand flashed. The dark and light runes instantly lit up. The moment he shifted, he slashed with his blade, containing the pinnacle of the blade realm, turning into ashes. Chi! 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 In the blink of an eye, Lin Feng executed 3 saber strikes consecutively. He stomped on the air with one foot and stabilized his body. The powerful saber strike struck the fire pearl. In an instant, the eruption of the endless flames became chaotic. A sound similar to a baby's cry rang out, instantly becoming incomparably mournful. Bang! The chaotic flames instantly changed direction, turning to attack Lin Feng. But at this time, Lin Feng had already appeared on the other side. His eyes were bright, and his black eyes turned into a huge black dragon. It opened its bloody mouth, and the energy aura of the blood centipede sovereign condensed in the void. With a bang, it engulfed the flame bead. Boom! The whole underground volcano trembled. The earth shook and the mountains shook. In the blink of an eye, the outcome was decided. A God-fallen world expert. Lin Feng stood in the endless flames, not moving an inch. No matter how the flames burned, they couldn't do any harm to him. The power of the flames was only at the 9-star level, not to mention now that there was no master. The purple flames, without control, were only at the 8-star level. To Lin Feng's defense, it was like scratching an itch. I don't have any treasures, but I do have a remnant. Lin Feng reached out and grabbed a 6-sided crystal left behind by the special life form of the flame bead. It was very small, but it was burning inside like a soul of fire. This is the core essence of the flame bead's special life form, isn't it? Lin Feng held it in his hand and felt a chill in his heart. Even if it were him, if he were to detonate the six-sided blazing crystal, he would be seriously injured even if he didn't die. It's a super terrifying bomb that can even kill a deity at close range. Lin Feng quickly came to a conclusion. The flame bead was able to spew out endless and powerful flames. Just imagine, if all these flames were condensed into a single point and placed in the middle of the six-sided flame crystal, how terrifying would it be? It's a lethal weapon. Lin Feng carefully put away the six-sided flame crystal, afraid that it would explode if he wasn't careful. His figure flickered, and he returned to the sky. So fast? Fifth Sister Firefly was surprised. Okay, Lin Feng nodded. What treasure? Quick, take it out and show it to me. Firefly's eyes lit up as she said eagerly. A piece of blazing crystal. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. I won't take it out. Fifth Sister, if this thing accidentally explodes, you and I will be buried here. So scary? Firefly covered her mouth in shock, and her face turned pale. Lin Feng nodded. It's not very useful. You can use it when you die together with the enemy. He didn't intend to give such a dangerous thing to Fifth Sister. With her fiery temper, she might use it one day. In fact, sometimes there was no need to be so extreme. Taking a step back was not necessarily a bad way out. Is there anything else? Firefly's eyes looked around, looking at the raging flames below with some expectation. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. Lin Feng grabbed Fifth Sister Firefly's hand. Let's go. The commotion here is too big. It's likely to attract other masters. Don't lose your life before finding the treasure. Oh, Firefly responded in a daze. Since some time ago, she had become obedient to Lin Feng. As they sped away, Lin Feng looked at the raging flames from the corner of his eyes. He smiled. It had been a long time since he had this kind of feeling. The excitement and novelty made his blood boil, and he was filled with the taste of adventure. With his current strength, he had to be careful here, taking one step at a time. He didn't want to take unnecessary risks. Lin Feng continued forward with Firefly. The phenomenon of a treasure unearthing was something that could only be encountered by chance. The God-fallen world was so big that it was not easy to encounter it. Most of the time, it was like the volcano eruption just now. The slightest carelessness could lead to falling into a trap. Waiting for the treasure to unearth was not as direct as looking for it himself. There might be treasures here. Lin Feng looked around with a torch in his eyes. He didn't know about other things, such as where the treasure was unearthed or where it was hidden. But if there was a divine beast guarding it, then there must be treasures. No treasure would be left behind. Divine beasts were the embodiment of heavenly treasures. They were born with the ability to easily find all kinds of heavenly treasures. It was just that it was not easy to obtain treasures from them. The divine beasts of the outside world might be ordinary, but the divine beasts of the God-fallen world were probably at least at the deity level. The experts of the God-fallen world were stronger than those of the chaotic void. Talent and cultivation places determined the upper and lower limits of the experts of the God-fallen world, and they were all extraordinary. I'll lure it away. Fifth Sister, you wait for an opportunity to take the treasure, Lin Feng said. I'm afraid that this divine beast's strength is not weaker than mine. Intuition told him that this would be a tough battle. However, his mission was not to kill this mythological beast, but to distract it. That was another matter altogether. Fighting with such an expert would be of great help to one's strength. As for whether he could obtain the treasure, it was up to the will of the heavens. What treasure? Firefly was a bit nervous. I'm not sure, but it should be around the place where the divine beast appears. Lin Feng slowly approached, the black skeleton in his hand shining with black light. The dark demon law all formed in his body, and his eyes were red. Firefly followed closely behind, her full chest heaving up and down. Her black eyes looked around nervously. She had been following the patriarch and did not have a chance to fight. It was difficult to train here, but now that her strength had greatly increased, she finally had the chance to show her skills, even if it was just to steal the treasure. It's here. Lin Feng's voice suddenly became low. In front, a powerful aura appeared. The ground around it shook violently, and a storm was coming. Suddenly, a high-pitched cry resounded through the sky. A snow-white figure descended from the sky, and the surrounding temperature instantly dropped to an extremely low level. Even the air was frozen, and the cold aura penetrated into the bone marrow. "Let's go," Lin Feng bellowed as he charged towards the snow-white divine beast. Firefly bit her red lips, and her eyes flashed. She retreated in the opposite direction to find the treasure. Chapter 21:14. Clang. The bone-chilling coldness froze in the air. Accompanied by a dragon-like roar, it shook violently. Even time seemed to recede. Divine beast, ice hornless dragon. It was shaped like a dragon, but it had the head of a fish and a sharp mouth. Its body was covered in snow-white scales and covered in a thin layer of ice. An icy aura came out of its mouth as its huge white wings cut through space. Pung! Lin Feng charged forward without flinching. Although he did not recognize this huge creature, as a native of the meteorite turbulence danger zone, Tang Ji recognized it. The ice hornless dragon was a famous divine beast with powerful innate abilities. It was the symbol of cold. The terrifying temperature could even freeze a 9-star expert. Crack! The surface of the ice hornless dragon was covered in a thin layer of ice, but it shattered in an instant. Lin Feng's eyes were blood-red. The dark demon Dao, formed by the law, all increased his body's strength. He was only slightly weaker than a divine beast at the deity level, but his realm was enough to make up for it. Tears of chaos. Lin Feng's blade fell and hit the ice hornless dragon's head. The powerful blade energy turned into a halo that spread to the surrounding area. The frozen area shattered instantly, no longer hindering his movements. Roar! The ice hornless dragon was furious. Its snow-white scales stood on end as its huge wings slashed forward like a sickle. The moment it passed, it froze the space, forming a perfect ice arc whoosh. Whoosh! Its attack was already terrifying, but with the freezing effect, it was even more frightening. Lin Feng did not take it head-on. He used the Lightspeed Dao to control his body to dodge the ice hornless dragon's attack area. The entire area was frozen as if it was under its control. Even if he took it head-on, it would not be too disadvantageous for him. Very strong. Lin Feng knew the ice hornless dragon's strength as soon as they exchanged blows. Compared to the blood hornless beast king that he had fought before, it was even more terrifying. The blood hornless beast king could only unleash its full power in the blood hornless dragon's lair, but the ice hornless dragon's strength was not limited by the area. It was the same everywhere in the God-fallen world. Such an opponent was almost impossible to defeat, but it was precisely because of this that it was even more exciting. If I can't even deal with it, how can I compete for the meteorite vortex and explore the secrets of the void turbulence? Lin Feng fiercely gritted his teeth as his fighting spirit surged even more violently. Based on the information Bai Jin knew, although the divine beast ice hornless dragon was strong, its strength was still not enough to squeeze into the ranks of the 10 great divine beasts of the God-fallen world, not to mention the various ferocious beasts and special life forms in the God-fallen world. As for the fifth sister Firefly, Lin Feng was not worried at all. With him restraining the divine beast ice hornless beast, there was no longer any threat here. Fifth sister could go on her own. As for what treasure she could obtain, it would depend on her own luck. To him, an opponent like the ice hornless dragon was more valuable than an outstanding true treasure. Come! Lin Feng held the black centipede in his hand. The divine marks of light and the divine marks of darkness were intertwined like intertwining branches. Lin Feng's battle intent stunned the ice hornless beast. It roared and roared in anger. A mere human dared to challenge its authority. How infuriating! On the other side, Firefly turned into a stream of light and flew close to the ground. She could feel the intensity of the battle in the sky. It was far beyond her level. Just the ice fragments falling from time to time were extremely powerful. The extreme cold even gave her goosebumps. What a terrifying divine beast. Firefly glanced up from the corner of her eyes. The ferocious divine beast was covered with sharp horns and scales. Its aura made people shudder. If she went up to challenge it, she would be torn to pieces in just a few moves. Only a freak like Seventh Brother would dare to fight against it. Firefly looked around and mumbled to herself, trying to find traces of the treasure. I hope Seventh Brother is right. Divine beasts don't roost unless there is treasure. But there are exceptions, right? This fish-headed dragon doesn't look like a divine beast. It looks more like a ferocious beast. Huh. While she was puzzled, Firefly suddenly quivered. The extreme coldness seemed to freeze her soul. Firefly hurriedly raised her head, but the battle between Seventh Brother and the fish-headed dragon was far away. It couldn't affect her at all. What's going on? Firefly paused. She suddenly opened her beautiful eyes and looked happy. It must be a treasure. Yes, it must be a treasure. Unusual phenomena were usually accompanied by treasures. Firefly had followed the family leader everywhere. She wasn't very experienced, but at least she was rich. This fish-headed dragon could release extreme coldness, so its nest must be extremely cold too. Or is the treasure guarded by the divine beast? It was most likely the nest. This way, with a target, Firefly's spirit was lifted. In the distance, Seventh Brother and the fish-headed dragon were fighting fiercely. It was hard to tell who would win in a short time. She had enough time to search for the treasure. Even if she went deep into the nest, she wouldn't have to worry. Firefly was 100% confident in her Seventh Brother. Ahead, after a short while, Firefly found her target, but her face was pale from the cold. Even though she was a 9-star great being, she couldn't withstand such cold. It wasn't a simple attack, but its power was more powerful than that. Unless one had a space isolation true treasure or a pinnacle true treasure protective shield, no matter how strong one's armor or shield was, they couldn't withstand the coldness. It's too scary. Firefly only held on for a short while. Then she kept retreating. Her jade-like arms had been frozen, and she couldn't feel them. When she retreated to a place where the coldness wasn't so piercing, the ice gradually melted, but her hands and feet were still numb. Looks like I have to do it in one go. Firefly pursed her cherry lips, showing her heroic spirit and unyielding spirit. As she got closer, the coldness became stronger. When it accumulated, the power was too scary. If she did it in one go, she should be able to withstand it for a short time, and maybe she could enter the nest and get the treasure. Whoosh! Whoosh! Firefly quickly adjusted her breath to recover her vitality. She wasn't seriously injured, so she recovered very quickly. In a short while, she was back to her normal peak state. Swoosh! Firefly went straight into the nest at the fastest speed. She gritted her teeth, and a thin layer of frost formed on her body instantly. The deeper she went, the thicker the frost, and the lower the temperature. Whoosh! Firefly felt that she had touched an invisible barrier, and she broke it instantly. The space changed, and everything in the nest entered her eyes. Firefly's chest rose and fell rapidly. She opened her eyes wide, but at this moment, her heart seemed to stop beating, and the extreme coldness hit her face. Her face flushed, and her body trembled. With great willpower, she broke free from the shackles and rushed out of the nest, panting. When she reached her original position, she was completely exhausted and sat down on the ground. But her beautiful eyes couldn't hide her joy. There really was a treasure. Chapter 21:15. The Divine Beast's lair was not big. It was a huge ice room. Because the fish-headed dragon could release cold air, it had lived here for many years. Even an ordinary cave had been transformed into a natural ice cave. In addition to the endless cold and ice, there was also a huge ice pillar. Firefly only glanced at it, but she already saw a divine staff hidden in the pillar. The snow-white divine staff was about 3 meters long, narrow at the bottom and wide at the top, with a layer of faint light. Even if it was frozen, it could not hide its amazing charm. At the top of the staff, there was a bright gem, shining like the eye of a king. A pinnacle true treasure. Even if it is not a pinnacle true treasure, it must be an excellent one. A super treasure. Firefly was wild with joy. She had followed the clan leader into the god-fallen world for thousands of years, and she had not found much. When she finally got lucky, she was attacked by the Void Dragon race in extreme fatal strike. She was extremely unlucky. However, after following her seventh brother for only a few hundred years, her bloodline had advanced and sublimated, and now she had even found a super treasure. But how do I get it? Firefly was in a dilemma. She thought she could get the treasure by rushing into the lair, but apparently it was not that easy. The fish-headed dragon probably treated this divine staff as its treasure, hugging it to sleep every day. That was why it had become such a thick ice pillar. This ice pillar was much thicker and sturdier than the ice around it. Even under normal circumstances, it was impossible to break this ice pillar, not to mention that she had to brave the extreme cold to break into the lair and then break the ice pillar. Even if I activate all my defense, I will be half dead after entering the lair. If I attack, my defense will drop, and I will be frozen in an instant. I won't even have time to escape. Firefly had tried twice, so she knew how dangerous it was. This was not a joke. Although being frozen would not kill her, if no one saved her, she would be no different from dying. She would become a living specimen. Ugh. Firefly was having a headache. The most annoying thing was that she could see the treasure, but couldn't get it. In the sky, Lin Feng and the ice hornless dragon were fighting fiercely. Lin Feng was slightly weaker than Bing Wu in terms of strength, but he was currently at the peak of his battle prowess. He was brimming with battle intent, and his way of light had just reached 100,000 reciprocity. His control over movement and speed had increased drastically. He couldn't defeat Bing Ho, but it wouldn't be easy for Bing Ho to catch him. Chila. Space was constantly frozen, blocking his path and greatly affecting his movement technique. The ice hornless dragon itself was not fast, but its ability to restrain its opponents was extremely strong. Experts who fought against it often had to fight it face to face in the end. But this opponent was so difficult to deal with. Cheat. While Lin Feng was dodging, he would occasionally slash at the ice hornless serpent. Although the power of the blade was not weak, when it struck the ice hornless serpent's incomparably thick scales, it could only break through the ice defense and injure it a little. This kind of injury, other than making the ice hornless serpent angry, did nothing. Soon, he would recover. I hope Fifth Elder Sister will be able to find something. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. Whether or not he could defeat the ice hornless serpent was not part of his plan. With his current strength, it was too difficult to do so. However, restraining the ice hornless serpent was not a problem. Its attacks were strong, and his speed was fast. They countered each other. He could stall for time and let Fifth Elder Sister slowly find the treasure. I'll just treat it as practicing my movement technique. The Luminous Ladybug King's ultimate movement technique appeared in Lin Feng's mind. Its comprehension of the path of light had reached the pinnacle of perfection. At the very least, the current him was unable to reach it. This kind of innate talent and gift from the heavens was a pure great Tao. With a gem in front of him, Lin Feng naturally did not decline his responsibility to learn from it. Just like the sovereign blood main horn. Although it might not be the best way to condense an all of law according to the patterns on the sovereign blood main horn, it was definitely a perfect method. Unfortunately, the sovereign blood main horn of the path of oblivion has not been completely refined and condensed into an all of law. Otherwise, if my attacks were imbued with the path of oblivion, even ordinary ashes of oblivion would be imbued with the power of the path of oblivion, increasing its attack power by at least several times. With each slash, the accumulated damage would be considerable. Every all of law with 100,000 origins was very powerful, even if it was a secret technique that had not been cultivated. Each had its own strengths. The path of dark demons, all of law, greatly strengthened the body's foundation. The path of lights, all of law, was blessed by the heavens in terms of speed and movement techniques. The path of oblivion's all of law directly imbued the path of oblivion, increasing its attack power. Suddenly, roar, It was the furious ice hornless dragon. Its huge body shook violently, and its eyes widened rapidly. It looked down and instantly became incomparably ferocious and distorted, as if it had discovered something. Oh no! Lin Feng immediately reacted. Fifth elder sister must have found the treasure and even entered the ice hornless dragon's lair. As a divine beast, it naturally had extremely powerful innate abilities, such as leaving its aura in its lair, setting up restrictions, and so on. Once someone entered, it would immediately discover it. Seems like there's a treasure. Lin Feng was delighted. If there was no treasure, the ice hornless dragon's reaction would not be so intense. You want to leave? With a flash, Lin Feng directly slashed down with his blade. His path of light had reached 100,000 Origin Realm experts, allowing him to attack and retreat freely. He firmly grasped the situation in his hands. Chi! Chi! He attacked consecutively, disintegrating blade after blade like a tidal wave, his power explosively increasing. It completely enraged the ice hornless dragon. This time, it was truly in pain. Again, Lin Feng directly followed up with tears of troubled times. He could not miss out on such a great opportunity. The ice hornless dragon's attention had been completely drawn away by the invasion of its lair. It was in a hurry to return to its lair, so not only were its attacks at a disadvantage, but its defenses had also become chaotic. Boom! Lin Feng's strongest attack suddenly erupted. Roar! The ice hornless dragon howled miserably as it bled profusely. Originally, it did not take the puny human seriously at all. Lin Feng's blade after blade was unable to harm it at all. The ice hornless dragon's understanding of Lin Feng remained at the same level as before. It had never imagined that this puny human would possess such powerful attacks. Another blade. Lin Feng's eyes were bloodshot. He instantly pushed the way of the dark demon to its limits. Vigorous energy rumbled as it slashed down from above. It had the advantage of location as it went straight for the ice hornless dragon's weak neck. The divine inscription of light and the demonic inscription of darkness intertwined, condensing the strongest energy together. It was extremely tight and perfect. In the face of the ice hornless dragon's stupid opening, Lin Feng took it all in. Boom! This saber stained the blood-red sky. The ice hornless dragon's miserable roar shook the sky. Its huge body fell from the sky with a boom. Its head had been completely severed. Decapitation. Chapter 21:16. He won. Lin Feng himself didn't dare to believe it. The divine beast, ice hornless dragon's strength was above his. There was no doubt about it. But sometimes luck couldn't be stopped. His attack power had indeed reached the level of a divine powerhouse. But killing the divine beast, ice hornless dragon with 2 slashes still required a lot of luck, even if he had attacked its weakest point, its neck. I didn't expect that instead of me helping Fifth Sister, it was Fifth Sister who helped me. Lin Feng smiled. Obviously, the divine beast, ice hornless dragon wanted to get rid of him and return to its nest because it was close to the treasure in its nest. And because he couldn't break its defense at all, the divine beast, ice hornless dragon didn't put in its eyes. It underestimated the enemy, so it lost. After the first slash, although the divine beast, ice hornless dragon had already woken up, it was already too late. It was in a lower position, and its injuries weren't light. Its neck was one of its weakest points, so the second slash connected with the first slash, completely destroying the divine beast, ice hornless dragon's defense. Its death was purely its own doing. If it was a powerhouse on the Origin Awakening list, how could it make such a low-level mistake in battle? Lin Feng sighed. Sometimes intelligence was really important. As long as the divine beast, ice hornless dragon paid a bit of attention, he wouldn't be able to kill it. Whoosh! Lin Feng directly put away the divine beast, ice hornless dragon's corpse. The divine beast's corpse was extremely valuable, comparable to several outstanding treasures. It was much more valuable and useful than vicious beasts. The ice hornless dragon's body was full of treasures. For example, the scales on its body didn't need any energy to increase its defense to the level of 9 stars. How terrifying was that? And the snow-white wings on its back could be made into divine weapons. There were too many. Moreover, the divine beast didn't have any evil aura. It was a gift from the heavens, so he didn't have to worry about being affected when using it. But these things had to be made before they could be used, so they weren't of much help right now. Moreover, there weren't any powerhouses in the Origin Awakening continent that could perfectly use the divine beast ice hornless dragon's corpse to make treasures. Even if it was made, it would at most be an outstanding treasure. Let's go see its nest. What kind of treasure could make it so anxious and disregard everything else? Lin Feng was also very curious. Outside the nest of the divine beast ice hornless dragon. Huff, huff, Firefly gasped for breath. Her delicate face was deathly pale, without a trace of blood. A thin layer of ice had condensed on her curvaceous body, as if she had been sealed in ice. Hua! With the release of energy, the ice gradually melted, but Firefly's complexion was still very poor. Another attempt was made, yet another failure. Just like the second time, he entered its nest and even took a few more glances at that peculiar divine staff. However, he didn't even have time to attack before he retreated, because if he didn't leave now, he wouldn't be able to come out. Extremely cold. The coldness of the nest had already exceeded her tolerance. Damn it! Firefly clenched her fists and bit her lips. The treasure was clearly right in front of his eyes, yet he couldn't obtain it. That feeling was like a knot in his heart, and it was extremely uncomfortable. Her seventh brother was delaying the fish-headed dragon, creating such a good opportunity and condition for her, but she couldn't do anything. Heartbroken, the sense of defeat made Firefly extremely uncomfortable. It was as if she had failed to live up to seventh brother's expectations and good intentions. She could only blame herself for not being strong enough. If it's seventh brother, he will definitely have a way. Firefly stared straight at that bone-chilling cold nest, and her eyes were somewhat absent-minded. Her previous fighting spirit had already vanished, and she seemed somewhat dispirited. The repeated failures caused her heart to waver. "What's wrong, fifth sister?" Suddenly, a familiar voice rang out from behind her. It instantly woke Firefly up. Her small face was slightly startled, and she was somewhat surprised. She turned her head, and her beautiful eyes widened. "Seventh brother, why are you here? Where's that fish-headed dragon?" Firefly looked around, and she was somewhat nervous. However, she didn't see the fish-headed dragon's figure. Her beautiful eyes glanced at seventh brother Lin Feng, and seeing his happy and relaxed expression, Firefly's face was filled with disbelief. "Seventh brother, you don't tell me that you chased the divine beast away, really?" Seeing that seventh brother Lin Feng was still smiling, Firefly's heart thumped wildly. It was too shocking. That was a divine beast at the level of a deity. It didn't run away. I killed it. Lin Feng looked at fifth sister and nodded with a smile. "You killed it?" Firefly was stunned. Did she hear it wrong? His seventh brother, Lin Feng, was actually able to kill a divine beast. According to seventh brother, the divine beast strength was equivalent to the top 10 of the Origin Awakener list. Didn't that mean that seventh brother Lin Feng had the strength to kill the top 10 of the Origin Awakener list? That was a kill. Killing and defeating were two completely different things. The former was much more difficult. It was luck. Let's talk about it when we have the chance, Lin Feng said and walked to Firefly's side. Looking at her pale face, his eyes were bright. "Fifth sister, are you injured?" "It's just a small injury." Firefly still hadn't recovered from her shock. "Is there any danger ahead?" Lin Feng asked. "Yes, it's very cold." Firefly's heart still had lingering fear. The bone-chilling cold goes straight to the depths of one's soul. The nest is several times colder than the outside, but there are indeed treasures inside. "I know," Lin Feng said. "How do you know?" Firefly was stunned. Lin Feng smiled. If there were no treasures, why would the divine beast be so nervous? Not only were there treasures, but these treasures were also extremely important and valuable. "You rest for a bit." "Fifth sister, I'll go take a look," Lin Feng said to fifth sister Firefly. The latter nodded and was very obedient. Her vitality had been damaged, so she wouldn't be able to enter the nest for a while. Moreover, Firefly was very confident in seventh brother Lin Feng. He could even kill a divine beast. So how difficult would it be to enter the nest of a divine beast? Was there anything that seventh brother couldn't do? The divine staff will soon be our spoils of war. Firefly said expectantly. It really is a bit cold. Lin Feng slowly approached the nest of the divine beast, the ice hornless dragon. Waves of bone-chilling cold seeped out of the nest, seemingly freezing the entire world. However, due to the chaotic space created by the wings of warmth, only a small part of it could touch his body. To Lin Feng, this bit of cold was like touching a piece of ice. It retracted after a light touch. Feeling a bit of cold, not only did it not harm him, it was actually very comfortable and made his blood cells more active. That's the nest. Lin Feng quickly saw the nest of the divine beast, the ice hornless dragon, not far ahead. It wasn't hard to find it by following the direction of the icy energy. Whoosh! Lin Feng's figure changed, and he entered the nest. This time, he couldn't rely on the wings of warmth to block the cold that assaulted his face. However, Lin Feng could fight the divine beast head-on, so how could he be afraid of this cold threat? That's the divine staff that fifth sister mentioned. Lin Feng also discovered it. Chapter 21:17. It wasn't hard to discover. That was because the divine staff was originally in the center of the ice hornless dragon's nest. The nest was only so big and could be seen through at a glance. The divine staff was also very special. It was wrapped in a huge ice pillar, and there was nothing but ice around it. The ice hornless dragon is so worried about this thing. Lin Feng was very curious. He carefully examined the divine staff. It was indeed strange. Even in the huge ice pillar, it was difficult to hide its powerful aura. However, he would have to wait until it broke out of the ice and grasped it in his hands to know its specific function. It might not be a particularly powerful treasure. Maybe it's just a favorite item of the ice hornless dragon. It could be seen that the huge ice pillar was formed because of the ice hornless dragon. If he guessed correctly, the ice hornless dragon must have hugged this huge ice pillar to sleep every day. That was why the ice pillar became thicker and thicker, and the ice energy was so powerful. No matter what, he had to break the ice first. Clang! Black hornless dragon entered his hands and instantly formed a layer of frost. Crack! The frost shattered. Lin Feng's eyes flashed. Suddenly, he used the Ashes of Ashes technique at an extremely fast speed. However, the sudden burst of power caused Lin Feng to frown. The moment he attacked, an endless amount of cold energy entered his body. It was bone-chilling and penetrated his soul. Bang! This saber heavily struck the gigantic icicle. However, it only caused a few cracks to appear on the huge ice pillar. Compared to the thickness of the ice pillar, it wasn't even worth mentioning. Lin Feng was somewhat speechless. His attack power wasn't weak, right? It couldn't even break the ice pillar? Phew! The creation of this huge ice pillar was probably incomparably ancient. It was like steel that had been tempered 100 times. The thickness and hardness of the huge ice pillar far exceeded normal standards. Again, Lin Feng naturally wouldn't give up so easily. Resisting the cold, he used the Ashes of Ashes technique again and again. His attacks were resolute. After 10 consecutive strikes, Lin Feng's face was already purple from the cold. However, the huge ice pillar didn't even have a single crack. It was far from enough. Lin Feng's eyes lit up as he channeled all his strength into his body. However, the effect was negligible. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. He had already attacked with all his strength. Tears of Turmoil's attack preparation time was much longer than Ashes of Ashes, and its power was also greater. However, the longer it took, the more the extreme frost would seep into his body. It should be noted that Firefly could not stay in the nest for even a moment. Not only could Lin Feng stay here safely, he could even launch an attack in the extreme cold, which was enough to show his strength. However, this bit of strength was still far from enough to break the ice pillar. Let's go out and recover first. Lin Feng wasn't in a hurry. His face paled slightly as he retreated. The divine beast, the ice hornless dragon, was dead, and all obstacles had been cleared. Therefore, he did not need to worry about time and could slowly experiment. No wonder Fifth Sister's face was so ugly. At this moment, Lin Feng finally understood. He left the ice hornless dragon's nest. Lin Feng's pressure instantly disappeared, and his expression returned to normal. Whether it was strength or recovery, he was much higher than Firefly. If it wasn't for the extreme frost from attacking the huge ice pillar, he wouldn't have needed to leave to recover. With Lin Feng's strength, it was not impossible for him to cultivate in the ice hornless dragon's nest. The safest way is to slowly waste time. Lin Feng quickly sorted out his thoughts. Without the divine beast, the ice hornless dragon, although the extreme frost had taken shape, its power would gradually weaken with the passage of time. However, the weakening would be very small at the beginning. If he was patient, the pressure would be much less after a few hundred years. Without waiting for the extreme frost to weaken, he could also attack the huge ice pillar every once in a while. Little drops made an ocean, and even water droplets could penetrate stone, not to mention that his own attacks could originally cause damage to the huge ice pillar. It wouldn't take long, at least a few decades, and at most 100 years. That's too long. Lin Feng didn't want to waste too much time here. The God-fallen world was already filled with danger, and no one knew what would happen. Perhaps in the next second, a new divine beast would appear in this territory, a new ferocious beast that was even stronger. If he wasted time breaking the ice, it might end up with nothing in the end. Since I've seen it, I'll try to get it as soon as possible, lest something unexpected happens. Lin Feng sighed lightly. As he closed his eyes to recover, he made a decision. Let's do it. 6 hours later, Lin Feng entered the ice hornless dragon's nest again. This time, Lin Feng already had experience. He gently flapped his warm wings to resist the icy cold qi. As long as he did not take the initiative to attack, the icy cold qi would still be within his tolerance range, even if it seeped in. But if he attacked, he would have to endure the corrosion of the extreme frost. Let's go directly. Lin Feng's hand flashed, and he took out the six-faced flame crystal. It was the treasure he obtained from the underground volcano. Hidden within this tiny crystal was an incomparably terrifying amount of energy. An extreme explosive crystal, and the fire energy it contained could be said to be a match made in heaven with the extreme frost. Hostile. To Lin Feng, the six-faced flame crystal was of little value. It was neither too high nor too low, so he might as well use it in this situation to save time and energy and avoid any future troubles. After all, treasures were only important when they were in one's hands and placed in one's pocket. Everything else was nothing but an illusion. Swoosh! Lin Feng's figure flashed, and he landed at the entrance of the cave. He let out a long breath, and the light arrow in his hand took shape. His eyes lit up, and he aimed at the six-faced flame crystal in front of the huge ice pillar. Suddenly, with a thought, the light arrow shot out. It went straight for the six-faced flame crystal. Wah! The moment the light arrow was shot out, Lin Feng retreated out of the cave. He ran as far away as he could. He didn't want to be caught in the crossfire. The explosion of this six-faced flame crystal was no joke. Lin Feng estimated its power. If it exploded at close range, it was enough to kill a god. Even he couldn't withstand it. Instantly, boom! Heaven and earth shook, and the earth shook. The entire nest collapsed instantly, as if the ice layer had broken and the continent had sunk. The earth and rocks cracked, and the extreme frost spread out from the collapsed ruins. Streams of energy rushed into the endless void, and they were instantly thinned. Lin Feng floated in the air, and the violent explosion just now still lingered in his mind. How shocking! If he had run a little slower, he would have been caught in the crossfire. Seems like there's a result. Using a six-faced flame crystal, Lin Feng didn't feel it was a waste or extravagant at all. An ordinary treasure in exchange for a supreme-grade treasure. Why wouldn't he be happy about it? Swoosh! Lin Feng's figure flashed, and he landed on the icy ruins. At this time, the huge ice pillar was no longer there, and it had disappeared along with the six-faced flame crystal. Pushing aside the rubble and ice, a ray of light gradually appeared. Lin Feng raised his hand, and in an instant, bang! All the fragments flew in all directions, and the perfect divine staff finally revealed its true appearance. Chapter 21:18. The snow-white divine staff was 3 meters long. It was narrow at the bottom and wide at the top. It was shiny and had a faint layer of light. It was very attractive. Looking at the divine staff was like looking at a graceful and noble queen who was holding the staff high and ruling the land. That kind of feeling, it was supreme. Pong, pong. His heart pounded. Lin Feng frowned slightly. He didn't know why, but he could feel that his bloodline seemed to reject this snow-white divine staff. Or rather, he didn't like it. Moreover, this divine staff didn't seem to be suitable for him. Pa! Lin Feng held the snow-white divine staff. Instantly, the resplendent gem at the top of the divine staff released a beam of light. His right hand was frozen. Oh! Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh. This divine staff actually had some intelligence and consciousness. Boom! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Instantly, a powerful soul power rushed in. It was like a vast ocean rushing into a small stream. In his head, there was a woman wearing golden armor and a snow-white feathered helmet. She had elf-like wings on her back and was holding a divine staff. She looked noble and graceful. Beside her, the divine beast ice hornless dragon was crawling on the ground like a mouse. It was very docile. In an instant, the image shattered like a mirror and no longer existed. There was a weak message in his head. No. It was a kind of resistance, a kind of unwillingness, a kind of unspeakable sadness. It was like a conquered country where the people's eyes were filled with helplessness and resentment. With just one more attack, the snow-white divine scepter's weak consciousness would be destroyed, and it would become his. But Lin Feng stopped. Whoosh! Lin Feng's eyes returned to normal. The ice in his right hand, which was holding the snow-white divine staff, had already shattered. Lin Feng stared at the shining divine staff. He could sense how much it missed its master and how close it was to him. No wonder the divine beast ice hornless dragon viewed this as more important than its life. So the master of the divine staff is also its master. It's just that Lin Feng also understood. The divine staff was ownerless. The ice hornless dragon's master had most likely died. The universe was boundless, and there were many experts. Deities were just SOSO. It was normal for them to die. With his strength, he could totally force himself to fuse with this divine staff. But what a waste. This scepter was supposed to be a top-tier, superior true treasure. However, after being infused with the energy of the ice hornless dragon for so many years, it has mutated. Apart from the original light energy, it now has a trace of ice energy. It should have evolved into a pinnacle true treasure. Lin Feng smiled. He did not expect that the first pinnacle true treasure he got would be like this. This treasure has a spirit. No wonder it rejected me so much. Is it because I killed the divine beast, the ice hornless dragon? Lin Feng could feel that the ice attribute of this divine staff came from the divine beast, the ice hornless beast. Even if he forcibly annihilated its will, the treasure itself would still reject him. Even if it was just a meager amount, he didn't need a treasure that couldn't fit perfectly and be used smoothly. Even if it was a pinnacle true treasure, in his hands, it could only unleash the power of an outstanding true treasure. Let's see if I have a chance to exchange for another pinnacle true treasure. Lin Feng held the snow-white divine scepter as he suddenly recalled its previous owner. She was valiant and formidable, and she wasn't inferior to any man. This divine scepter is most likely used by a woman. Fifth sister also cultivates the Tao of light, and she didn't kill the divine beast, the ice hornless dragon. Maybe she can fit this divine scepter? Lin Feng's eyes lit up. Indeed, this divine scepter was extremely valuable, but Lin Feng was not a stingy person. Moreover, he had long regarded fifth sister, Firefly, as his family. Not to mention one pinnacle true treasure if fifth sister needed it. He would even give her 2 or 3 pinnacle true treasures. There was no need to be calculative when it came to family. This is... Firefly looked at the snow-white divine scepter that was shining all over. Her chest rose and fell rapidly, and her 2 big eyes widened. Her body actually trembled slightly. What a strong attraction. Oh, Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't feel the attraction at all. Instead, he felt a sense of fear and rejection. As expected, this divine scepter was very unfriendly to him. It's for you, 5th sister. Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh. He now understood that this divine scepter obviously wanted its owner to be a woman, not a man. Ah, Firefly was startled. She suddenly reacted. This is the treasure of the divine beast, the ice hornless dragon. It's too precious. 7th brother, I can't accept it. Take it, 5th sister. Lin Feng directly stuffed the divine scepter into Firefly's hands and said with a smile, "This treasure is useless to me, but it should be of great use to you." Lin Feng didn't continue because there was no need for him to say anything. The moment 5th sister Firefly received the divine scepter, something strange happened. The gem at the top of the divine scepter released extremely bright energy. It was like a layer of holy light that completely covered Firefly. The speed was fast, and the speed of the divine scepter's fusion was fast, as if it couldn't wait any longer. This guy, Lin Feng shook his head with a smile. The will of the snow-white divine scepter was like an ignorant child. Because he had been close to annihilating it, it was very afraid and rejected him. Now that it had found a new owner, it couldn't wait to merge with it. It was afraid that he would annihilate it again. This was good. It would save 5th sister a lot of effort. When the treasure merged with itself, it could unleash its strongest characteristics. Looking at 5th sister Firefly, whose entire body was covered in light and had become incomparably holy, tiny ice crystals even condensed on her armor. The light energy mixed with the ice energy, and her aura became very powerful. 5th sister's opportunity has arrived. Lin Feng didn't feel envious. He only sincerely wished her well. This pinnacle true treasure is enough to let 5th sister's strength squeeze into the top 30 of the Origin Awakening list. As for how high she can reach, it depends on the degree of compatibility and 5th sister's endurance. Maybe she can squeeze into the top 25 of the Origin Awakening list, or even the top 20. Lin Feng was looking forward to it. He was happy for 5th sister that she could become stronger. Cultivation was long. Lin Feng was astonished by the compatibility between the 5th sister and Firefly. He originally thought that it would take a few days, or at most a few dozen days, to perfectly merge. However, after 10 years, it still didn't end. Instead, it became more and more intense. Lin Feng was also very surprised. 5th sister's body seems to have undergone some changes. Lin Feng's eyes were bright. It was hard to see with the naked eye, but he could clearly sense it. 5th sister's body was constantly increasing. It was accompanied by a strange energy. Her body emitted traces of coldness. Her entire person, along with her temperament, was changing. She was transforming in a good direction. If the snow-white divine scepter had any ulterior motives, Lin Feng wouldn't hesitate to annihilate it. It seems that this divine scepter still has some secrets that I don't know. Is it related to its previous owner? Lin Feng thought. He smiled slightly and didn't care. Since it was developing in a good direction, he would wait. After all, when 5th sister completely merged with it, everything would become clear. Chapter 2119. 10 years passed by. Firefly's fusion lasted for 127 years. Lin Feng had cultivated for 127 years as well. Even the sovereign blood Horn of the Way of Oblivion had almost condensed into an all of laws. He had also begun to grasp the third move of the myriad obscuring heavenly blade, Mandarin Duck's tie. The Way of Light focuses on change. Different colors can transform into different defenses, allowing the attacks to change at the same time. It uses the myriad changes to deal with the unchanging. The Way of Darkness focuses on guarding one's heart. It uses a single path to deal with myriad different paths, increasing one's ability from the very core. It's like a huge mountain that stands in the world. Its weight is unshakable. It uses the unchanging to deal with the myriad changes. How do I combine the two? Even though Lin Feng had already reached the third level of great perfection in both the way of light and the way of darkness, he was still very far away from 100,000 Origin Realm experts. His understanding of their essence was far from complete, let alone combining them. It was even more difficult. Two completely different energy systems, two completely different characteristics, completely unrelated to each other. However, just like the fusion of light and darkness, the greater the difference, the more powerful the fusion would be. Lin Feng, who was in the midst of comprehending, suddenly had a thought. He put away the Black Lotus and looked at the fifth sister, Firefly, who was not far away. The aura of the divine staff had gradually disappeared, and the energy of the resplendent gem seemed to have been exhausted. Looks like it's over. Lin Feng's eyes shone. Over the past 127 years, he had observed all of his fifth sister's changes. Putting everything else aside, her current physique had already evolved and advanced to the level of a god. Although it was still far from his own level, she had still stepped into the threshold of a god. When she became a god master in the future, her physique alone would be much higher than that of a normal human master. Not only that, but the fifth sister's body seemed to have gained a new innate bloodline. She emitted a faint, icy aura that was very similar to the ice hornless dragon. From his experience with the ice hornless dragon, not only could the frost slow down the enemy's attacks and reduce their damage, but it also had the ability to freeze them. It could reflect a certain amount of damage back to the enemy and freeze them. Of course, this was only a minor counterattack. If he had really relied on his bloodline to freeze, he would have been beheaded like the divine beast, ice hornless dragon. Firefly seemed to have woken up from a long slumber. Her delicate cherry lips let out a moan, and her long eyelashes fluttered gently. She opened her eyes and looked at her seventh brother, Lin Feng, who was smiling in front of her. Her smile was beautiful and moving. Has it been a long time, seventh brother? Firefly blinked. Not long, 127 years. Lin Feng replied with a smile. Ah! Firefly covered her small mouth. Her beautiful eyes flickered as if she was recalling what had happened recently. After a while, she apologized. I'm sorry, seventh brother. I've troubled you for so long. It's nothing. Lin Feng smiled. How do you feel, fifth sister? Firefly pursed her cherry lips and opened her sparkling and translucent hands. With a thought, ice and frost were released. It was as if holy crystals were condensed in her hands. They were not frozen, but transparent and sparkling. She had perfect control over them. Ice itself was ever-changing. Swoosh! Firefly gently waved her right hand, and an ice wall suddenly appeared in front of her. Her left hand thrust forward, and an icicle instantly formed. Her eyes flashed, and the shadow of the snow-white divine staff appeared in her body. It was like a spine, perfectly fused together. Chi! Lin Feng raised his blade and directly broke the icicle and ice wall. Crack! The icicle and ice wall shattered one after another. Congratulations, fifth sister. Lin Feng looked at fifth sister Firefly. Not only has your bloodline transformed, but your strength has also increased greatly. In addition to the ability of light, you can also perfectly control the ability of ice. You can use it as you wish. It's too magical. Firefly still found it hard to believe. Lin Feng smiled and said, If I'm not wrong, this divine staff should also be accompanied by a bloodline inheritance. If it was just a normal fusion, it would not have taken so long. As early as the 10th year, he had already guessed that this divine staff was also looking for a master to inherit the legacy of the previous master. Therefore, it rejected him very much. In fact, it was not only because he had killed the divine beast Ice Hornless Dragon, but because his bloodline was too strong. It could not give him an inheritance at all. But fifth sister Firefly was different. Fifth sister Firefly was a woman, and her bloodline was not strong. Moreover, she cultivated the path of light and did not have a dark bloodline like him. For the divine staff, she was undoubtedly the best candidate to inherit. Therefore, when the divine staff came into contact with fifth sister Firefly that day, it was already very excited. Yes. Firefly nodded slightly and said tirelessly. The previous master of this divine staff was ambushed in a dangerous adventure and was seriously injured. After escaping, before he died, he merged all of his divine sense and bloodline essence into the divine staff of light condensation crystal and handed it to his mount, the ice hornless dragon. After that, the divine beast ice hornless dragon accidentally fell into the chaotic void and came to the meteorite turbulence land. For countless years, it has been guarding this divine staff of light condensation crystal. Lin Feng listened. It was not much different from his estimation. The original master of this divine staff of light condensation crystal was a divine spirit expert, Lin Feng said. Firefly nodded. A top-tier divine spirit expert. Lin Feng frowned slightly. A top-tier divine spirit expert using such an ordinary superior true treasure. Divine spirit experts were divided into 6 levels: ordinary, elementary, middle, high, top-tier, and pinnacle. Above them were heavenly gods. Therefore, top-tier divine spirit experts were already considered experts in the universe. Logically speaking, experts at this level should use pinnacle true treasures. Firefly said, "How can there be so many treasures in the universe? There are too many monks and too little gruel." Divine spirit experts are indeed experts in the universe, but the universe is so big that there are actually as many divine spirit experts as there are stars in the sky. In the war between the races, they're only considered soldiers. At the very least, they have to become heavenly gods to be considered the true backbone of the race. Now that she had the inheritance, Firefly's knowledge and experience were naturally much richer. I see. Lin Feng understood. The inheritance of Ancestor Wan Qian did not mention so much. He only knew that the levels in the universe were divided into divine spirit experts, heavenly gods, and divine masters. As for those below divine spirit experts, they were not worth mentioning. Even the strongest dark region master could only barely pass through the black hole and enter the universe after cultivating to the extreme. The divine staff of light condensation crystal is already not bad. It is a top-tier, superior true treasure, and it has a special material like the divine staff of light condensation crystal core, which can store a large amount of energy. Firefly's beautiful eyes flashed. And for countless eras, the divine staff of light condensation crystal core was bred by the divine beast ice hornless, and it has developed its own will. With the combination of the two, it has now entered the ranks of pinnacle true treasures. Thank you, seventh brother. Without you, I'm afraid I would never have come into contact with such a high level in my life. Really, thank you. Looking at Lin Feng, Firefly's heart was touched. She could not describe the feeling. It was as if she had been given a new life. Chapter 21:20. Firefly knew her own situation. Her bloodline had already reached its limit. Even if her bloodline had improved with the help of her seventh brother Lin Feng, that was all. Firefly clearly knew that the limit she could cultivate to was the same level as her second brother Shi Dingshan. Just like her second brother Shi Dingshan, wanting to break through was harder than ascending to the heavens. However, because of her seventh brother's help, it was as if she had come from a precipice to an extremely wide road. Not to mention the God Realm. Even the heavenly God Realm would be within her reach one day. This favor was too great. You're welcome, fifth sister. This is your opportunity, Lin Feng said with a smile. There was no envy, only happiness for fifth sister. One inheritance was enough. He had ancestor Wan Gon's inheritance, which could reach the limits of the universe. What did he need other inheritances for? That's right, fifth sister. What level are you at now? Lin Feng asked curiously. Give it a try. Firefly blinked her eyes playfully. Okay. Lin Feng also smiled. They set off again. 127 years, to martial artists, was not considered much. However, for Firefly, who had received the inheritance, her strength had improved by leaps and bounds after 127 years of inheritance. She was no longer the ignorant girl of the past who improved every day, not to mention 127 years. One could imagine how powerful the inheritance this time was. Fifth sister, your strength has reached the threshold of the god realm. With a light, condensing divine staff, your battle prowess is comparable to a god realm expert. Although your bloodline has transformed to the limit, you still need to rely on yourself to reach the god realm. With the light condensing divine staff's inheritance, you should know how to reach the god realm. Lin Feng and Firefly sped through the god-fallen world. After a contest, Firefly was naturally defeated. After all, Lin Feng's strength was strong enough to kill the divine beast ice hornless dragon. Even if it was luck, he needed to have enough strength to make luck descend. However, Fifth Sister Firefly's strength was indeed unexpected. He originally thought that she would be very satisfied if she could squeeze into the top 30 of the Origin Awakening list. Who would have thought that Fifth Sister Firefly's current strength could even enter the top 10 of the Origin Awakening list? However, due to the shackles of his bloodline, he was still unable to step into the level of a deity. However, with the inheritance of the light condensing divine staff, stepping into the god level was just a door, and one could easily step into it after finding the key. For the fifth sister of Firefly, who had the inheritance in her hands, it was not difficult. They were a perfect pair. Fifth sister Firefly, whose strength had greatly improved, provided Lin Feng with great help. This was especially true for the pinnacle true treasure, the condensing light godly staff. Not only could it unleash Firefly's natural light talent, but it also had the characteristics of ice, freezing, obstructing, and controlling. The divine beast ice hornless dragon possessed almost all of the abilities possessed by the condensing light divine staff. To Lin Feng, who was extremely fast and had powerful attacks, the moment he used the fluorescent light condensing divine staff, his enemies were like fish on a chopping board. His combat strength could be easily displayed. Even the dangers of the god-fallen world were nothing to him. Firefly herself was also very happy. A smile hung on her beautiful face all the time. Extreme misfortune brings bliss. After going through a disaster, she finally welcomed a new life. Now, she was no longer a burden to seventh brother Lin Feng, but a capable helper. If her bloodline advanced another level and stepped into the level of a deity, her strength would even be comparable to seventh brother's. At that time, it would be a true perfect pair, and they would be invincible. Looking at seventh brother Lin Feng, who was fighting with several ferocious beasts in front of her, Firefly's beautiful eyes were clear, and there was an indescribable feeling in her heart. They were all from the Milky Way, and they were originally very close. This time, they had gone through thick and thin together, and they had established an extremely close relationship. In addition, seventh brother Lin Feng had given her a new life, and Firefly's heart had long been touched. However, I am so much older than him. Firefly's heart was in a mess. She bit her cherry lips, and for the first time, she felt the barrier of age. Originally, she did not care about this at all, and she had never thought about it. She had only focused on martial arts. Moreover, her own talent was not bad, and she had the help of a benefactor, so she was still very young to become a 9-star great being. There were only a handful of 9-star great beings younger than her in the Origin Awakened continent. Now, her beauty was at its peak, and Firefly was like a blooming peony, delicate and fragrant. She was extremely confident in herself. However, the one she met was seventh brother Lin Feng, who was much younger than her. Too young. Seventh brother Lin Feng was much younger than her. "What's wrong, fifth sister? What are you thinking about?" A familiar voice fell in her ears, and Firefly's delicate body trembled. She raised her head and saw seventh brother Lin Feng's smiling face, and her small face immediately blushed. "Nothing. If there's nothing, then let's go." "Fifth sister, there seems to be something wrong with the god-fallen world recently. Let's meet with the patriarch as soon as possible," Lin Feng said. "Okay," Firefly replied obediently. Whoosh, whoosh, two figures sped through the air. Both of them were proficient in the Tao of Light, so their speed was naturally extremely fast. The entire God-fallen world was filled with a strange atmosphere, as if a storm was coming. It was extremely oppressive. At first, it was not obvious, but as time passed, it became more and more obvious. This is the sign of the meteorite vortex's emergence. I saw it a few times when I was with the Patriarch. Firefly's beautiful eyes flickered as she looked at the sky. Her senses were not as sharp as Lin Feng's, but as the phenomenon became more and more obvious, she could naturally notice it. The phenomenon of the meteorite vortex's emergence spread throughout the entire God-fallen world. It was hard not to notice it. Okay, Lin Feng nodded. Is the place where the phenomenon is the most prominent and the most intense change is the place where the meteorite vortex is emerging? Firefly nodded. All the surrounding forces will gather and engage in an intense competition. Unless they are too far away, they will all come to fight for the meteorite vortex. It's a battle between experts. It's not surprising that it will fall into either side. Apart from the first two meteorite vortexes that were easy to fight for, the subsequent ones will become more and more difficult. In the previous fight for the last one, not only did we not get it, but we were also targeted by the Void Dragon tribe and extreme fatality. Our team was directly scattered, and we almost died in the turbulent void. Firefly was furious when she thought of that. Despicable and shameless. The other forces had all come to fight for the meteorite vortex, but the Void Dragon tribe and extreme fatality had joined forces to kill them. Too despicable. She could not wait to go back and meet up with the Patriarch to teach the Void Dragon tribe and extreme fatality a lesson. The current her had enough strength to fight and protect herself. A battle between experts. Lin Feng looked at the phenomenon in the sky and sighed. Indeed, it was not just the experts of Origin Awakened Continent. There were also experts of the God-fallen world and the turbulent void. The fifth sister was right. When the first and second meteorite vortexes were unearthed, everyone did not understand and did not react. Fighting for them depended more on luck. But after that, everything became clear. If they wanted to fight for it, it would depend on their own methods and strength. With his current strength, to participate in this level of competition, even with the fifth sister and Firefly, they would not be able to do so. Phew, Lin Feng sighed softly. He was still too weak. No matter what, let's meet up with the Patriarch first. Chapter 21:21. There were too many secrets hidden in the vast and boundless God-fallen world. However, Lin Feng was not in the mood to search for them at the moment. The same went for Firefly. After obtaining the inheritance of the light-condensing staff, she did not need any other treasures. She only needed to cultivate in peace and break through to the God Spirit level, and her strength would increase by a large level. When the meteorite vortex appeared again, it would definitely be a bloodbath. Now, only the clan leader and Sanya were left. They were not strong enough to fight for the treasure, and even protect themselves would be difficult. After all, the Void Dragon clan and Fatal Limit were eyeing them covetously, like wasps hiding in the dark. However, Lin Feng knew that the clan leader Dong Wang would definitely fight for the meteorite vortex, even if there was only a slight chance. He had the strength to fight for it. Moreover, he had the heart of an expert. As an expert, he would not be afraid of any difficulties or obstacles. Even if it was a dead end, he would not turn back. Not to mention, the meteorite vortex itself was extremely valuable and worth the risk. Fourth brother Tsang Yo was the same. After fighting with him, he knew that he was also a strong man, but he was arrogant by nature. There was nothing wrong with being arrogant. Often, only talented people had the right to be arrogant. It's very close. Through the sensing stone, Firefly could clearly sense the position of the clan leader Dong Wang. It was the same as the place where the vision was strong, both in terms of position and direction. However, the proximity of the sensing stone and the distance were two different things. How much longer? Lin Feng asked. If it's fast, 60 years. If it's slow, 100 years. If the clan leader and the others continue to move, the time will be extended, Firefly said. Lin Feng nodded. Judging from the vision, How long will it take for the meteorite vortex to appear? Less than 100 years, Firefly said. Can we make it in time? Lin Feng frowned slightly. It depends on luck. Firefly shrugged. Is that so? Lin Feng smiled bitterly. His luck had never been very good. Kuei-chi, Kuei-chi. Endless black flames burned on a blood-red land. This was a rather famous region in the God-fallen world, Black Fire Mountain Range. A black flame halfling race that was no weaker than the blood-devouring beasts controlled the entire Black Fire Mountain Range. The dark flame halflings had a total of 5 godly realm experts. The number of deity-level experts was uncountable. However, the black flame halflings did not dare to say anything even though there were countless experts from other clans gathered on the Black Fire Ridge. Moreover, one of their 5 godly spirit experts had been killed because he tried to stop them. The experts of the chaotic void, the experts of the God-fallen world, and the experts of the Origin Awakened continent were all gathered here. There were more than 1,000 of them, and among them, there were dozens of divine spirit realm experts. It was a shocking sight. This was the place where the next meteorite vortex would be unearthed. Although the black flame halfling race was strong, they had no way of monopolizing the meteorite vortex. There were many races in the God-fallen world that they did not dare to provoke, such as the barbarian race, the female spirit race, the mountain-back giant race, and so on. Needless to say, there were also some special life forms that had powerful bloodlines that were unique and unparalleled. There were more experts and special life forms in the chaotic void, but in terms of quality, they were inferior to the experts of the God-fallen world. The number of divine spirit experts was a few times less. The weakest were naturally the experts of the Origin Awakened continent. Although there were dozens of experts, there were only 3 divine spirit experts. 2 of them were standing opposite each other, like fire and water, ready to fight. Dong Wang, you are so cunning. The voice was like the ringing of a bell. It was a monster with a dragon head and a human body. His body was covered in green scales, and he exuded a powerful aura. His dragon tail slammed heavily on the ground, extinguishing the black flames on the Black Fire Ridge. How did my second brother, the ghost-devouring dragon, die? Dragon Emperor Jiankong stared angrily, flames burning in his eyes. Dong Wang crossed his arms and stood with his eyes closed. His expression was calm, and he completely ignored Dragon Emperor Jiankong. He was like a sword in a scabbard, completely concealing his aura. No matter how angry Dragon Emperor Jiankong was, he ignored him. However, Dong Wang's body exuded a chilling sword essence. As long as Dragon Emperor Jiankong made a move, it would be a merciless clash. Say it, Dong Wang. Are you mute? You dare to do it, but you don't dare to admit it. Bastard. Dragon Emperor Jiankong cursed angrily, full of resentment. He would not fight here. There were so many divine spirit experts watching. If he fought with Dong Wang, it would be troublesome if someone else took advantage of the situation. He knew his strength well. He was on par with Dong Wang, and there was no way to determine the winner in a short time. Jiankong. Dong Wang, who had his eyes closed, finally spoke. His expression was normal, and he was not surprised. He who is unjust is doomed to destruction. Dong Wang said calmly, and then he closed his mouth again. In fact, even he did not know how the ghost-devouring dragon died. If Dragon Emperor Jiankong did not tell him, Dong Wang would not have believed it. The ghost-devouring dragon, who was ranked 2nd in the Void Dragon clan and 23rd on the Origin Awakened list, was dead. How'd he die? They must have gone after 3rd sister and 5th sister. What happened? Did they encounter a disaster? The ghost-devouring dragon is dead. Are 3rd sister and 5th sister alive or dead? Dong Wang had mixed feelings. With 3rd sister and 5th sister strength, it was impossible for them to kill the ghost-devouring dragon. If they really encountered it, they could only escape. Moreover, there were ultimate fatality experts chasing after them. It would be a lie to say that he was not worried. However, Dong Wang knew that there was nothing he could do at the moment. Just Dragon Emperor alone was enough to put him in a terrible fix, not to mention that extreme fatality was watching him from the side. It was not as if he had not experienced Poison Rose's ruthlessness before. A woman's heart was the most vicious. Poisonous Rose was not only powerful, but also had endless schemes. She was very difficult to deal with. I hope you are safe. If you are unfortunately killed, I, Dong Wang, swear that I will kill the Void Dragon clan and ultimate fatality to avenge you. Dong Wang was not a wishy-washy person. Since he was the clan leader, he knew how to take responsibility. Right now, he had a more important task to do. On the Blackfire Ridge, there were more and more experts. The phenomenon of the meteorite vortex was very obvious. Basically, all the experts wandering around would gather. However, in a chaotic battle, strength was one aspect, while luck and ability were another. It was possible for anyone to snatch the meteorite vortex. Dragon Emperor Jiankong and Dong Wang were ranked 5th and 6th respectively on the Origin Awakened list. Their strength was not bad, but this was only in the Origin Awakened continent. In terms of deity experts, they only had the battle prowess of a novice deity. In the Blackfire Ridge, there were a total of 12 novice deity experts. There were a total of 4 mid-level deity experts. There was even a high-level deity expert. One had to know that the number 1 expert on the Origin Awakened list, the retired emperor of the Ziwei Star Tower, Yin Fa Jia, only had the battle prowess of a high-level deity. Moreover, in the Origin Awakened continent, there was only 1 high-level deity expert. Chapter 21-22. High-level God? Lin Feng was slightly surprised. Yes, from the information of the condensing divine scepter, Yin Fa Jia, the Purple Star Emperor, should be a high-level god. Firefly nodded. His strength is 1 level higher than the other experts on the Origin Awakening list, so he should be the only high-level god in Origin Awakening continent. Thorn, who is ranked 2nd, should be a mid-level god. Patriarcha is a novice god. Venerated Axe, Ancestor E, and Yin Fa Suishin, who are ranked 8th, 9th, and 10th on the Origin Awakening list, are all ordinary gods. After receiving the inheritance, Firefly had gained a lot of experience in all aspects. She was also very clear about the strength levels of experts. After all, she had traveled extensively with the Patriarch. Even if she hadn't seen all the top 10 experts on the Origin Awakening list, she had heard the Patriarch describe them. Her estimation of their strength was not far from the mark. An ordinary deity expert. Lin Feng's eyes flickered. His strength was at this level now, and he might be close to the limit of ordinary gods. However, compared to the novice god level where the Patriarch, Dragon Emperor Jiankong, and the strongest expert of the Destiny race, Wulong, were at. Soon, when my Tao of Oblivion reaches 100,000 Origin Realm experts, I should be able to reach the level of novice god. Lin Feng said softly. His battle strength would be able to cross an entire level. After all, his current life level was only at the mid-level god level. He hadn't even reached the high-level god level. His bloodline was too powerful, and its upper limit was also very high. However, the heavens were fair. The stronger the bloodline, the harder it was to improve. There were pros and cons. One day, when my life force reaches the level of a deity, my battle prowess will probably reach the pinnacle of a deity. Lin Feng smiled. However, it wasn't easy to improve one's life level, especially when his cultivation time was still very short. No matter how pure and powerful the Myriad Heaven Path was, he had to cultivate step by step and spend a lot of time to succeed. There were no shortcuts to cultivation. Suddenly, Lin Feng's heart stirred, and his expression changed slightly. Raising his head, the sky seemed to have turned pitch black in an instant. In the blink of an eye, it was as if the clouds of dawn had parted. The next moment, a bright light flashed, as if a bright star had risen into the sky. The originally oppressive aura was released in an instant, and the pressure disappeared. The entire world was rapidly changing. The meteorite vortex is unearthed. Fifth Sister Firefly's voice rang out. Yeah, Lin Feng also felt it. It was as if the power that had been suppressed all this time had suddenly erupted, igniting the entire God-fallen world. It was a little faster than the estimated time of its emergence. At present, he was still a short distance away from the Patriarch's location, where the meteorite vortex was unearthed. Obviously, he couldn't make it in time. It was destined that he would not be able to participate in the fight for the meteorite vortex. Let's hope that the clan leader can succeed in one fell swoop. Lin Feng didn't mind. If it was his, then it was his. If it wasn't his own fortuitous encounter, there was no point in forcing it. The Blackfire Ridge was already bustling with activity. After more than 100 years of accumulation, the number of God-level experts here had exceeded 1,000, and nearly 100 God-level experts. As soon as the meteorite vortex was unearthed, it was fought over by experts from all sides. A great battle was about to break out, and it was extremely lively. The two high-level God-level experts in the God-fallen world and the turbulent void collided directly. Among the God-level experts, these two were the most powerful. At the beginning, they were crazily fighting to determine who was better. They clearly knew that the other party was their strongest competitor. A group of mid-level God-level experts were in a chaotic battle. The meteorite vortex couldn't fall at all. In the repeated attacks, it was scattered in the space interlayer, and no one was confident of getting it, because they would be besieged by other experts in an instant. Smack! A big hand appeared out of thin air. As soon as it got the meteorite vortex, it was attacked by 3 mid-level God-level experts. Before it could react, it was already dead. It didn't even have time to scream. It died in a miserable way. It was basically impossible to get the meteorite vortex from the novice God-level experts. Unless they were extremely lucky and the meteorite vortex happened to fall into their hands, and they had a certain life-saving ability. The gods were fighting. Of course, Dongwang wouldn't participate. He was waiting for an opportunity. If there was a chance, he would strike without hesitation. Although he was a novice God-level expert, he was close to a mid-level God-level expert when he exerted his full strength. On the opposite side, Dragon Emperor Jiankong was also waiting. If Dongwang didn't strike, he wouldn't either. He wasn't stupid enough to become a target. Even Poison Rose, whose strength had reached the limit of a novice God-level expert, wouldn't easily strike in such an occasion, let alone Dragon Emperor Jiankong, who was still some distance away from the limit. If you want to learn from Li Qing, you must have the strength first. Dragon Emperor Jiankong looked at Dongwang sarcastically. The last meteorite vortex was obtained by the solitary expert Li Qing, who was ranked 3rd on the Origin Awakener list. He had the strength of a mid-level god, and his movement technique was outstanding. His life-saving ability was quite impressive, and he had even managed to escape from the pursuit of a high-level god. Dongwang stared at the battle above, ignoring Dragon Emperor Jiankong's sarcasm. He also didn't see a trace of coldness in Dragon Emperor Jiankong's eyes. By the way, why don't I see Lord Kanjia? Dragon Emperor Jiankong suddenly asked. This time, Dongwang's eyebrows twitched slightly. Did he go to pick up his helpers? Dragon Emperor Jiankong squinted his eyes and smiled. His blue dragon tail slapped the ground as he said lightly, "Ah, where did Poison Rose and Master Chu go? They should have arrived here before me. Why aren't they here yet?" Swoosh! Dongwang's face suddenly changed and turned pale. Boom! Before he could react, a terrifying collision came at him. It was so fast that it was impossible to guard against it. Dongwang snorted, and the defense he hurriedly put up collapsed quickly. Blood splattered everywhere, and he immediately unsheathed his sword and cut through the sky. Despicable! Dongwang gritted his teeth and shouted. Dragon Emperor Jiankong laughed and glared at him. "Are you worried, Dongwang? Let me tell you, today is not only the death of Lord Kanjia, but also your death. Do you think the human tribe of the Milky Way is qualified to fight with the Void Dragon clan?" Boom! Boom! Dragon Emperor Jiankong laughed wildly. He had been waiting for this opportunity for a long time. He wanted to wipe out the human tribe of the Milky Way in one fell swoop. It didn't matter whether he could get the meteorite vortex or not. Even if he could get it, so what? Dragon Emperor Jiankong was very self-aware. Someone as strong as Yin Fa Jie might be able to fight for the great opportunity, but him? His strength was far from enough. Instead of fighting for the slim chance, it was better to fight steadily and work together to kill their enemies, the human tribe of the Milky Way and the assassins. He would then take over their forces and territories and expand his advantage. After enough preparation, he would wait for the next great opportunity. This was the best plan. Stupid human tribe of the Milky Way, Dong Wang, who only knows how to fight recklessly, die. Dragon Emperor Jinkong revealed his true body and roared ferociously. Now that all the experts were focused on the meteorite vortex, it was the best time. Kill Dong Wang and wipe out the human tribe of the Milky Way. Chapter 21-23. Lin Feng and Firefly were on their way to Black Fire Ridge. All of a sudden, Firefly was slightly surprised and stopped. Her beautiful eyes flashed with doubt. She looked in the direction of Black Fire Ridge and then slightly to the right. She couldn't help but frown. What's wrong, fifth sister? Lin Feng also stopped. Is there a problem with the sensory stone? Firefly held the green sensory stone in her hand. It gave off a faint glow. The direction is a bit off. I felt it before. Now that we're closer to the meteorite vortex, the deviation is more obvious. Lin Feng said. In other words, the chief left the meteorite vortex? Firefly shook her head. I'm not sure. Judging from the direction and distance, even if the chief left when the meteorite vortex was unearthed, he couldn't have gone so far. The only possibility is that the chief left before the meteorite vortex was unearthed. Lin Feng understood. In other words, either the chief left the meteorite vortex fight early or the chief's sensory stone was taken away by someone else. Therefore, fifth sister was not sure whether they should go to the meteorite vortex or follow the sensory stone. Follow the sensory stone. Lin Feng made a prompt decision. Firefly looked at Lin Feng with some confusion. Lin Feng said, at our current speed, I believe the fight will be over by the time we reach the meteorite vortex. Whether or not the chief gets the meteorite vortex, he can't still be there. The God-fallen world is so big. Even if the chief is close to us, it won't be easy to find him. If we follow the sensory stone, we'll at least have an accurate target and direction. Firefly smiled. Seventh brother is so smart. Lin Feng said, let's not go in the direction of the sensory stone. We'll be slightly off. This will save us a lot of time. Firefly nodded. Understood. Using the triangle theory, Lin Feng and Firefly kept getting closer to the sensory stone. Aside from the endless meteorites, every area in the God-fallen world was quite dangerous. It was difficult to move around. However, for Lin Feng, who had the strength of an ordinary God Spirit elite, and Firefly, who had the strength of a God Spirit elite, there was not much danger as long as they were careful. The God-fallen world has many dangerous places. Even deities can't come out after entering them. However, this kind of desperate situation is usually clearly marked. Even if you don't enter, you can still sense the danger. It's best to avoid it. This is one of those places of despair, Taizé Lake. No one knows what's in the lake. We only know that none of the experts who entered Taizé Lake came out, including the deities. Firefly pointed to a place not far ahead. Lin Feng nodded. Although they were extremely far away, they could still feel the aura of death that pervaded Taizé Lake. It was like a resting, peerless, ferocious beast, and the lake water was its bloody mouth. Anyone who approached would be devoured. However, the so-called desperate situation only applied to people. Lin Feng was well aware of this. When he entered the blood python's lair, the forbidden black land was also called a desperate situation. No one who entered it survived. In fact, this was not the case. The so-called desperate situation was actually just a situation where one's strength was higher. As long as one was strong enough, they could conquer a desperate situation. However, he felt that even he would most likely die if he entered Taizé Lake. At the very least, he would need the strength of a novice deity to enter and take a look. There were very few novice deities in Origin Awakened Continent. Even if they entered, they might not be able to come out alive. Even if they came out alive, it would not be announced to the world. Over time, it became a desperate situation. Seventh brother, don't play with fire. Firefly stared fiercely at Lin Feng. Those desperate situations are no joke. Many experienced deities have fallen after entering them. I know. Lin Feng nodded. Don't worry, fifth sister. You're here to keep an eye on things. Firefly snorted. Of course. With me here, don't even think about doing anything dangerous. Lin Feng smiled. He could feel fifth sister's concern from the bottom of her heart. However, although he liked to take risks, there was a limit to many things. Often, it was within his control. He would only do it if he had a certain degree of certainty, even if the certainty was not great. He definitely wouldn't rush forward in the heat of the moment without a care for anything. If that were the case, he would have died many times over by now. How far is it, fifth sister? Lin Feng asked. Soon. Firefly showed a look of anticipation as she looked into the distance. I hope we can see the chief soon. I hope so too. Lin Feng nodded. Buyu Slope was high and visible at a glance. This was a huge green hillside. It was the most suitable place to climb and look into the distance. Standing on Buyu Slope was also very easy to be found. Wearing the one armor, an excellent treasure, Sangya stood on Buyu Slope and looked into the distance. Suddenly, his pupils dilated, and a hint of joy appeared on his calm face. Deputy Chief, Sangya shouted, the corners of his mouth raised. Ha, fourth brother. In the distance, a resolute man walked over with a majestic gait. He was like a steel giant, standing there unyieldingly without losing his composure. It was the vice-clan leader, Shi Dingshan. You're finally here. Sangya laughed. Sorry to keep you waiting. Shi Dingshan stretched out his right fist and bumped it with Sangya's. There was no need for words between men. There are many dangers ahead. The chief asked me to come and pick you up. Sangya said, Deputy Chief, it's good that you're here. Our strength can increase by another 10%. We don't have to struggle anymore. Oh. Shi Dingshan raised his thick eyebrows. What happened? Sangya said, it's a long story. Let's walk and talk. Okay. Shi Dingshan nodded. As experienced as he was, he naturally sensed that the situation was not right. Just as they were about to set off, Shi Dingshan suddenly clenched his fists and frowned. His surging aura instantly released a turbulent battle intent. He shouted, Who are you? Since you're here, why don't you come out and meet me? Sangya's expression suddenly changed. He did not sense the presence of other experts. The other party's strength was obviously far above his. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew. The wind whistled. In a cold wind, a gray figure with a lowered head and a large machete on his back slowly walked over. His hair was a little messy and his armor was covered in dust. It was as if he had not used it for a long time. The strangest thing was that the machete on his back seemed to be curled. It was extremely strange. His aura was completely submerged. It was almost impossible to detect him. This was a martial artist that was hard to notice even if one saw him. He is. Sangya's eyes widened as he looked at the figure in the cold wind. He could not believe it. His steps were slow and unsteady, as if there was no life in him. His eyes were closed, but the hideous scars on his eyes could be seen. Ming. Shi Dingshan was shocked. The second strongest solo warrior, Ming. Chapter 21-24. Ming was a legendary figure. He had been active on the previous Origin Awakening ranking and had entered the top 20 long ago. Although he was blind, his heart wasn't. Losing his eyes made his sixth sense extremely sharp, and his cultivation path was smooth. However, no one knew why he disappeared and lived in seclusion in the mountains. The only thing they knew was that he was still alive. Abelind's strength was publicly acknowledged. He had become famous even earlier than Li Qing, who is currently ranked 3rd on the Origin Awakening list. Although he was only ranked 14th on the Origin Awakening list, no one knew what level his strength had reached. This was because he hadn't fought in a very long time. Some people guessed that his strength had been crippled, while others guessed that his cultivation had reached a bottleneck. There were many reasons for this, so he sealed his blade and lived in seclusion. However, the exact situation was still a mystery. What are you doing here, Ming? Shi Dingshan asked in a low voice. He could tell that Ming had been waiting here for a long time. He was like a fierce beast waiting for its prey to come to its door. Clang! The large blade on Ming's back trembled slightly, as if it could feel its master's battle intent. With a clang, it came out of its sheath. "I'm here on orders to take your lives." Ashi opened his eyes. His eyes were empty and lifeless, just like the god of death. His face was expressionless, but his words sent chills down one's spine. The large blade on his back landed in Ming's hand, and instantly formed the image of a mutated beast. It was a top-notch, outstanding, true treasure, Chi Wu blade. Boom! A blade that could break the heavens and earth, directly split Bo Yupa into two. Before the person moved, the blade arrived first. The terrifying power shook the heavens and earth. The blade wielder, Ming, who had been sealed for a long time, once again showed his fangs. It was fine if he didn't use his blade, but once he did, it shocked everyone. "Fourth brother leave," Shi Dingshan shouted as he retreated. "Vice Patriarch." Sonya's expression was somewhat ugly. "I told you to leave. Didn't you hear me?" Shi Dingshan glared at him and shouted. He, who never got angry, was like a ferocious lion when he got angry. Sonya clenched his teeth. His face was pale, and his teeth were about to shatter. "Ah!" With a roar, Sonya turned into a ray of light and sped away. He knew that Vice Clan leader Shi Dingshan stayed behind to protect him. There was no need to spread rumors about A-blind strength. He only needed to see it with his eyes and feel it with his heart. With his strength, he didn't even have the qualifications to stay behind and cover the retreat, let alone fight with Ming. Only Vice Patriarch Shi Dingshan had a slight chance, but it was only a slight chance. Sonya could clearly sense that A-blind strength had reached a whole new level. It was a realm that he had dreamed of for a long time, a realm that he longed to reach. "It's moving again," Firefly exclaimed. "Which direction?" Lin Feng frowned. The sensing stone hadn't moved for a long time. There must be a reason for its sudden change. "In the direction of the meteorite vortex," Firefly said. "Go back." Lin Feng faintly had a bad premonition. He said in a low voice, "Quickly." "Okay." Firefly followed Lin Feng and changed directions, chasing after the sensing stone. At this moment, they were already incomparably close to the location of the sensory stone. Inch by inch, inch by inch. "He's very fast. He's moving at the speed of light," Firefly said. "Go ahead and block him," Lin Feng said. With a roar, Lin Feng's wings of warmth suddenly unfurled. The way of light condensed into a blood-fong horn and an all of loss. Elemental sensing was under his control. The divine inscription of light instantly lit up and tore through space with a whoosh, breaking through the speed of light. Pung! Pung! The resistance of the God-fallen world was so great that it was difficult to maintain the speed of light, let alone exceed the speed of light. The moment space tore open, countless meteorites fell, heading straight for Lin Feng. "I seal." Firefly was right behind Lin Feng. She displayed the might of the divine light staff, sealing the space with layers of ice. They had fought together for several hundred years. Not only did they have a close relationship, but they also had great teamwork. Even though Lin Feng could bear the price of tearing open space with his strength, it was still worth it. The moment the space was sealed, Firefly could no longer see Lin Feng's figure. The way of light, 100,000 origin realm cultivators, how terrifying. Firefly sighed emotionally. She had only reached the great perfection of the way of light with the help of her inheritance. But compared to her seventh brother's 100,000 origin realm cultivators, it was like the difference between heaven and earth. She even found it difficult to maintain the speed of light, but her seventh brother could easily exceed it. This was the true difference in strength and cultivation. Swish! Firefly followed Lin Feng's trajectory and quickly caught up. She did not need to sense anything. She could easily see the turbulent flow of space that surpassed the speed of light. The frequency of meteorites falling increased by several dozen times. Even though it was filled with danger, Firefly was not afraid. Just the might of the divine light staff was enough to protect her. She used Eye Seal like it was flat ground. They were very close. Lin Feng did not need to rely on the sensory stone to sense the figure that was moving at the speed of light. Now that he was in the state of the way of light and the all of laws, he could sense the element of light even more directly after tearing open space. His senses of speed and shape were extremely powerful in the surrounding area. He was right up ahead. Swish, swish. Lin Feng constantly sped up. The wings of warmth disrupted space as he pushed the way of light to its limit. The might of 100,000 Origin Realm cultivators was on full display at this moment. Originally, he would not have been able to catch up to him at the speed of light, but now he could rapidly approach him. Wah! Lin Feng's eyes lit up. He could sense the aura. It was not the patriarch, but another familiar aura. Fourth brother Sanya? Lin Feng was slightly surprised. He could sense that his fourth brother Song seemed to be in panic. His mind was in a mess, and he did not know what had happened. He could not sense the patriarch. Song seemed to have separated from the patriarch. The sensory stone is in fourth brother Song Ye's hands? Lin Feng became even more curious. As he approached, his battle intent erupted, directly locking onto his fourth brother Sanya. The latter's body trembled, and he immediately slowed down. Clearly, he had also sensed Lin Feng's aura. Swish, swish. The two figures met in an instant. Seventh brother? Sanya stared at Lin Feng in shock. He did not know why he had come here. Fourth brother. Lin Feng and Sanya became friends after a fight. They were both part of the Milky Way's human race, so there was naturally no enmity between them. The sparring from before was just a way for men to communicate. Why are you? Sanya stared at Lin Feng in confusion. His expression suddenly changed. This is not the place to talk. Come with me. Lin Feng frowned slightly, revealing a puzzled expression. Someone is chasing after us. Sanya yelled. Quick, it'll be too late if we don't leave now. Don't let the Vice Patriarch's sacrifice go to waste. What? The Vice Patriarch's sacrifice? Lin Feng immediately held his breath. His eyes were cold. What did you just say, fourth brother? Say it again. Chapter 21-25. It was as if he had been struck by lightning. Lin Feng's eyes were bloodshot, and his terrifying aura made Sanya tremble as if he had seen a devil. It was hard to believe that this young man with bloodshot eyes was his seventh brother, Lin Feng. What a terrifying aura. What exactly happened, fourth brother? Lin Feng stared straight at Sanya as he spoke through gritted teeth. Who killed second brother? There were only two deputy patriarchs. Third sister had just returned to the clan, and when they parted, he knew that she had made up her mind and would not return to the turbulent void. As for second brother, Shi Dingshan, he had entered the turbulent void early, but he did not know where he was. Among the human clan of the Milky Way, the one who was closest to Lin Feng was not Patriarch Dongwang, nor was it fifth sister Firefly. It was second brother Shi Dingshan. When he was rescued by the Supreme Dragon Sky City and was recommended to join the human clan of the Milky Way, he took good care of him. Under the tough appearance of the deputy patriarch, Shi Dingshan was a man of steel and tenderness. He took good care of his people like a kind father. In Lin Feng's heart, the deputy patriarch was like a family member, a teacher, and a friend. Now that he heard such bad news, how could he stay calm? Seventh brother, Sanya was a little frightened by Lin Feng's aura. Even if he was defeated by Lin Feng in the tranquil world, he did not think that his strength was weaker than Lin Feng. Now that he had entered the turbulent void, his strength had greatly improved, and he was no longer the same as before. Compared to his seventh brother, Lin Feng, he should have left him far behind. But at this time, Sanya felt that he was like a porcelain tile in front of his seventh brother, Lin Feng, who could not withstand a single blow. His seventh brother, Lin Feng, could easily annihilate him with a casual attack. How could it be? Tell me, fourth brother. Lin Feng was anxious. Don't ask, seventh brother. Come with me to find the patriarch, or it will be too late. Sanya calmed his mind, gritted his teeth, and said to Lin Feng, this is a serious matter. The enemy came prepared, and I am afraid that the patriarch will be in danger. Let's go, seventh brother, hurry. Don't hesitate. Sanya was also very anxious. Although he was sad about the death of the deputy patriarch, Shi Dingshan, He also knew that this matter could not be reversed. In the current situation, all he could do was not to let the Deputy Patriarch's good intentions go to waste. Phew! Another gust of wind blew, bringing with it a slight chill. It was chilly. It was very familiar. A gust of wind blew against Song Ye's face. It didn't cause any damage, but it caused him to be dumbstruck as his eyes widened. He was here. He was here again. That terrifying blind man, Ming, was a terrifying expert whose strength had reached the top 10 of the Origin Awakening list. He knew that Vice Clan leader Dingshan would not be able to hold on for long, and had already escaped at his fastest speed. But he did not expect Ming to arrive so quickly. Damn! Sonya's body was trembling. He hated himself for being weak, and hated the Vice Patriarch's good intentions for being wasted. He was not afraid of death, but he did not want to be killed like this. Facing an expert of this level, he, who was alone and without help, could not escape at all. He did not even have the qualifications to cover the retreat. Suddenly, so it's you? A bone-chilling voice resounded in the air. Song Ye's heart jumped, but he saw a familiar figure standing in front of him with a blade in his hand. Seventh brother Lin Feng. You're the one who killed my second brother, Dingshan? A blind. Lin Feng stared at the person in front of him, the second strongest individual. His appearance was very special, and he could be recognized at a glance. A normal divine realm expert, Lin Feng snorted. He had already sensed a blind strength, even if he did not reveal any energy aura. Everyone had their own fortuitous encounters, especially in this great reincarnation. There were even more fortuitous encounters. Previously, there was an expert who had opened the Heaven's Road and obtained the inheritance, causing his strength to increase by leaps and bounds. A blind strength was tyrannical, and he was ranked 14th on the Origin Awakening list. He had already reached the peak of the Divine Realm, and only needed one more step to become a Divine Realm expert. It was not surprising that he had become a Divine Realm expert. Clang! Hei Tung was raised high, and a huge black dragon roared in the air, roaring furiously. Lin Feng, whose eyes were blood red, pushed his Dark Demon Dao to the limit. Dark Demon runes condensed into Light God runes, venting the anger in his heart. Who cares who he is? Oh, a blind, who had his head lowered, suddenly raised his head. Although he could not see, his senses were much more sensitive than other experts, especially his mind's eye, which was clear and bright. The strength of this human youth in front of him was unfathomable. Who are you? A blind stood with his blade, his aura surging, wind stirred around his body, and his expression was solemn. The person who will take your life. Lin Feng's voice suddenly fell. In that instant, the surrounding space started to churn. While warm wings messed up the space, great Brahma enveloped the entire area. Under the Dark Demon Dao, Lin Feng's strength exploded to the limit. Boom! 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 The peak of the blade went straight for a blind. What a strong realm. A blind was not afraid, and instead was happy, revealing a strange smile. Pung! The two blades collided in the void. With a violent roar, Lin Feng descended from the sky. Boundless anger ignited his fighting spirit, and the destructive power of tears of troubled times was unleashed to the extreme. The intense fluctuation of the halo shattered the surrounding space. Pung! Sangya, who was not far away, was affected, and his expression changed drastically. What kind of blade move is this? Sangya was terrified. He was so far away, and he could only block it with his utmost defense. That was just the shock wave of the battle. How terrifying was the direct power? Boom! Lin Feng went crazy. Anger and hatred caused his fighting strength to explode. At this time, Lin Feng's fighting strength was extremely close to a novice god expert, and even reached the threshold of a novice god expert. Especially his attacking strength. It was even more powerful and tyrannical. Although a blind strength was strong, he was only an ordinary god expert. Moreover, he had not been in battle for a long time, and was different from Lin Feng, who had been fighting for a long time. With one move, the difference between the two was obvious. The shadow of Chiwu Blade was directly devoured and scattered by the black dragon. The wind howled, but it could not stop the fusion of light and darkness. Boom! Boom! Lin Feng's fighting strength was off the charts. He fought with all his strength, directly tearing apart any defense. One blade after another. He did not give a blind any chance to breathe. Although his body was injured by a blind's counterattack, the pain and blood aroused Lin Feng's fighting spirit. He attacked crazily, aiming to take a blind's life. Die! Lin Feng's eyes burned with anger, and his fighting strength was pushed to the limit. A blind, who was already at the end of his rope, could no longer resist, but there was no fear on his face. Instead, a meaningful smile appeared on his face, and he opened his mouth as if to say something. The next moment, boom, a blind, who had the strength of an ordinary god expert, was blasted into pieces. Like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood, he died without a burial place. Dust flew and blood danced. The world was bleak, and the sound of a blade reverberated. The powerful attack's aftershock flattened the surrounding area. As the dust flew, Lin Feng's saber-wielding figure appeared. He was already invincible. Song Ye's eyes widened, and he stared blankly. His jaw almost fell to the ground. What has happened? Seventh brother Lin Feng actually killed a blind, who had the strength of a top 10 ranker on the Origin Awakener list. Killed. Chapter 21-26. Seventh brother, you. Song Ye's heart was beating violently as he stared at Lin Feng. Come out, don't sneak around. In the air, Lin Feng stood upright. There was no joy on his face. Even after killing a blind, he didn't feel any joy. Who? Song Ye was stunned. He looked around, confused. Other than the two of them and a blind's corpse, there was someone else here? Suddenly, his eyes flashed. There seemed to be a red glow on the horizon, like a bloody glow. In an instant, a charming yet sharp laughter rang out, echoing in the air. What a powerful child! You even noticed this? A lady dressed in red seemed to have descended from the sky. Her tight battle armor wrapped around her exquisite and perfect body. Her snow-white skin looked so delicate that it could be broken by the slightest breeze. On her charming and moving face, there was a pair of red phoenix eyes that could steal one's soul. Accompanied by her bell-like laughter, a rich fragrance filled the air. Poison rose. Song Ye's eyes widened. Suddenly, he remembered what a blind said before. He was here to take their lives under someone's orders. Could it be? I indeed couldn't notice, but a blind knows. Lin Feng looked at Poison Rose. This legendary woman was above him in all aspects. She was even above clan leader Dong Wang. She had single-handedly created Fatal Limit and was on par with the strongest assassination organization, Assassin. Although they were enemies, she was still worthy of respect. This trash. Poison Rose smiled faintly. Her phoenix eyes glanced at A-Blind. She didn't show any emotion. An outdated martial artist who is addicted to the happiness of the countryside. He doesn't even know how to wield a blade. Everyone has their own aspirations. There's nothing wrong with yearning for a rural life. Lin Feng looked at A-Blind. His gaze then fell on Poison Rose. Forcing others to do something they don't want to do is the real mistake. Poison Rose laughed and winked at him. How do you know he didn't do it willingly? I can still tell if he's a human or a ghost. Lin Feng said. A-Blind wanted to die. He didn't want to be threatened by you. If I'm not wrong, you should have captured his wife. Don't harm the wife and child. Let her go. In a face-to-face battle, Zhang Xian could clearly see A-Blind's every action and thought. This included his final complex emotions. He was clearly very attached to her and had yet to resolve his worries. Yet he didn't want to continue fighting. His will to die was very strong. He did not kill his second brother, Shi Dingshan. Lin Feng believed him. Although he did not see the situation, he could guess that if Ming did not make a move, the one who would make a move would be Poison Rose. With her strength, second brother had no chance of surviving. What are you saying? I don't understand. Poison Rose chuckled. Suddenly, her bright red eyelids rolled slightly as she muttered softly. Counting the time, it's about time for him to fall. Song Ye, who had been listening to the conversation from the side, was dumbfounded. However, his expression instantly changed as he exclaimed, "Poison!" Unable to feel anything at all, Sanya had no idea when or where the poison had come from. His complexion paled as he suddenly reacted, "It's the fragrance. Seventh brother, be careful of her fragrance." "Ha ha!" Poison Rose covered her mouth and laughed. Her phoenix eyes flickered. "You can't even protect yourself, and you still have the time to do other things. Looking at the time, it's about time for your seventh brother to fall." And Poison Rose's smile stopped abruptly. She looked at Lin Feng in disbelief. Her vermilion red eyelashes frowned. "Why aren't you poisoned?" A dignified spirit realm expert, ranked 4th on the Origin Awakening list, actually did such despicable things. Lin Feng looked at Poison Rose with a trace of coldness and disdain. He had heard that Poison Rose was treacherous and cunning. Today, he had seen it for himself. She threatened Ming and hid at one side. After being discovered, she poisoned him. As an expert, she was indeed shameless. Injuries are inevitable in battle. Poison Rose chuckled. Why make things so complicated when it can be easily solved? As for you, I am rather curious. Who are you? Her charming smile had already disappeared. Poison Rose stared at Lin Feng. She already felt a trace of threat. Lin Feng smiled. Aren't you looking for the culprit who killed Magic Flute and Master Chu? Far in the horizon, close in front of you. Pung! It was like an earthquake. Not only did Poison Rose's eyes dilate, even Sanya, who was poisoned, was shocked. When did his seventh brother do so many things? Kill Magic Flute, kill Master Chu. Those were the core members of Fatal Limit. So it's you. Poison Rose's charming face instantly distorted, revealing a trace of viciousness and anger. Her entire person was like a bright red rose, emitting a seductive aura. You dare to go against Fatal Limit Die? CI. A formless whip suddenly appeared like a poisonous python. Its attack speed was unimaginably fast. The fiery red whip had both strength and speed. Its attack range was rather wide. Pa! Lin Feng's warm wings flapped, causing the surrounding space to become chaotic. The whip was like a giant python that coiled around the chaotic space. The fiery red light flickered and instantly shattered the shattered space, coiling around Lin Feng's body. But it coiled around empty air. Only Lin Feng's afterimage was left. Oomph. Poison Rose's gaze sharpened. Your reaction is fast. Lin Feng had already prepared for battle. How could he be careless when facing a super expert who was ranked 4th on the Origin Awakening list? His battle power was the limit of a normal deity. As for Poison Rose, she had already reached the limit of a low-level deity. There was a difference of 1 stage. However, it was not impossible to win. Anything could happen during a battle. It was common for the weak to win against the strong. Moreover, even if he wanted to avoid this battle, he could not. The initiative was in Poison Rose's hands. Chi. Dust disintegration technique was instantly used. The fusion of light and darkness produced a powerful force, but it was still not as thick as a deity. Lin Feng's realm was not low, and his saber technique was accurate. However, Poison Rose was not bad either. The expert ranked 4th on the Origin Awakening list was not ordinary. Poison Rose displayed her self-created whip technique to the fullest. Her soft aura was perfectly compatible with heaven and earth. It contained great Tao and had already reached the peak level. With the addition of her bloodline, it was even more terrifying. Close combat. Poison Rose coldly smiled, as if she was looking at him with disdain. Are you worthy? Boom. The long whip instantly turned from soft to hard as it lashed out at Lin Feng's vital point. The profundity of the whip technique was fully displayed. Poison Rose's perfect control was enough to show her strength. Do you think that Ming is so great after killing Master Chu? Poison Rose's red phoenix eyes narrowed. She was like a high and mighty empress. Don't be happy too early, little guy. Poison Rose laughed wildly, her face distorted. However, in an instant, the entire world seemed to have been sealed in ice and solidified into a single piece. Even the speed of her whip abruptly decreased. An extremely strong freezing power descended, and the power of the domain was instantly controlled. What? Poison Rose's expression changed. Ice ceiling 10,000 miles. She held the light-condensing divine staff in her hand, and a bright light shone. She was like an ice empress. She had finally caught up. Chapter 21-27. A pinnacle true treasure. Firefly wasn't strong, but the power of a pinnacle true treasure was enough to affect a god spirit realm great being. The effect of 10,000 miles frozen was quite strong, and the surrounding environment was greatly suppressed. Poison Rose was the first to bear the brunt. Whip attacks were different from saber attacks. Whip attacks covered a wide area. From the time the attack was executed to the time it hit the opponent, the area it covered was much larger than that of saber attacks. Thus, the effect of the 10,000 miles icebound was much greater. Plus, Firefly was the one controlling the ice, and her target was Poison Rose, not Linfong. Fifth sister. Sonya's eyes nearly popped out of their sockets as he stared at the newcomer. The newcomer's appearance and attire were all too familiar, but the strength and aura they exuded were completely different. Was this the fifth sister he knew, Firefly? How did she become so strong all of a sudden? Swish! While Poison Rose was stunned, Linfong pressed forward again. His ghostly figure displayed the path of light speed vividly. After so many battles, they had a tacit understanding of each other. The effect of the 10,000 miles of ice on Linfong was negligible. Tongue rose into the air and attacked. Tears of Chaos. It was an extremely powerful knife attack. Although it was only 70% in a hurry, it was much stronger than Ashes. Poison Rose's whip shadow was instantly crushed. Whip techniques weren't strong, and now, under the influence of 10,000 miles frozen, even the attack speed was greatly reduced. Damn it! Poison Rose's face turned pale, and she retreated. The long whip's flexibility was outstanding. Although it was crushed by Black Skeleton, it wasn't damaged at all. It instantly turned from attack to defense, turning into a spiral cocoon that spun like a tornado. Pung, pung, pung. She blocked 3 knife attacks, and every attack was neutralized by the long whip. Poison Rose was unharmed, and she was only pushed back a little by the impact. But in the next moment, endless ice appeared around her, flying over like meteorites. Every icicle was extremely fast, and it contained the path of light. Insignificant skill. Poison Rose had already stabilized her body. She, who had been through many battles, wouldn't be flustered because of this. It was just a pinnacle true treasure, and she had seen it before. Even she herself had one. The spiraling area of the long whip shrunk, protecting his body tightly. All of the ice cones instantly struck the long whip that was spinning at high speed. The combination of hardness and softness made it extremely powerful. So powerful. Firefly, who was controlling the light-condensing divine staff in the distance, opened her beautiful eyes wide. Her attack timing was perfect, but she still could not hurt Poison Rose at all. The difference in strength was obvious. No matter how exquisite her moves were, Poison Rose's whip technique and strength suppressed her in all aspects. Boom! At this moment, Linfeng's attack arrived once again. This time, he had gathered 80% of his power. Black whistled through the air, and the energy of the divine patterns of darkness and divine patterns of light intertwined with each other. The fusion was perfect, and it pierced through the Poison Rose's spiral whip shadow. Bang! Bang! Boom! Linfeng's battle intent soared as they clashed head-on. However, Poison Rose did not lose out in the slightest. Even though she was being closed in on, she was still fearless. A trace of viciousness flashed across her ice-cold face, and a pink mist suddenly appeared in the seamless whip shadows. Swish! Linfeng's eyes instantly turned red, and all kinds of illusions appeared one after another. Impossible to guard against. Break for me. His willpower was extremely strong. The moment he was hit, Linfeng had already broken through the illusions. Under the dark demon state, the power of his blade technique was even stronger, and he forced Poison Rose to retreat continuously. Your willpower is quite strong. Poison Rose frowned. Her first plan had failed, so she came up with another one. The spiral whip shadow directly condensed into a funnel shape, fiercely clashing with Lin Feng's black scorpion. The strong impact caused Poison Rose to retreat to the side. In the instant she flew, Poison Rose turned around. Gee! The fiery red whip seemed to have a life of its own. It abandoned Lin Feng and went straight for Firefly. Oh no! Lin Feng did not expect this. Even though he had the light-condensing divine staff, Lin Feng was very clear about Fifth Sister Firefly's strength. The current her was far from being Poison Rose's opponent. Once she got close, she would most likely die. Chi! In the air, Lin Feng forcibly stopped his body. Under the dark demon state, he was already crazy. He naturally would not watch as Fifth Sister Firefly was killed by Poison Rose. However, it was too late to save Fifth Sister Firefly, and there was no need to save her. He directly attacked Poison Rose, besieging Wei to save Zhao. Poison Rose was a woman who cherished herself very much. She was not willing to suffer any injuries. As long as she felt that she was in danger of being injured, she would retreat and give up on killing Fifth Sister Firefly. Lin Feng's thoughts turned quickly. Ash's attack was already exploding at the fastest speed, 100%. The rhythm of the light speed Dao and the dark matter Dao was also extremely good. However, the power of the two was not strong. Many whip shadows protected her body. Even though a portion of the attack was split, the strength of her defense was enough to block Ash's attack. Poison Rose was not afraid of fighting 1 against 2. Instead, she had the upper hand. Hua, I sealed 10,000ly. Firefly held the light-condensing divine staff and faced Poison Rose, who was ranked 4th on the Origin Awakening list. Even though the difference in strength was huge, she was not afraid of retreating. She chose to fight. However, the difference in strength was still huge. Damn it, it's too late. Lin Feng clenched his teeth. He was extremely anxious. The Origin of the Sacred Land released its energy to the limit, but Ash's attack was not powerful enough, so the power of the attack was much weaker. If it was Tears of Chaos, it would have been enough to break through Poison Rose's defense. However, it was too far away. He could not catch up. In this extremely dangerous situation, Lin Feng's blood seemed to boil. The Path of Oblivion's sovereign blood main horn, which had always been in a state of fusion, finally put together the final piece of the puzzle. 100,000 Origin Realm Essences had reached perfection. A third 100,000 Origin Realm Essences. This feeling was far too familiar to Lin Feng. It was far too clear. The surging energy of the Path of Oblivion and the essence of 100,000 Origin Realm Essences all fused together. Another sovereign blood, main horn appeared in his body, perfectly forming. Of the 6 paths of darkness, the Path of Oblivion with the greatest offensive power. It gave cultivators the ability to attack. Any attack would contain the Path of Oblivion, which could annihilate all essences. There was no need to cultivate any secret techniques. The power of the attack would increase tremendously. Good. Lin Feng's eyes shone brightly. It was the same Ash's attack, but its power had increased drastically. A single strike from Ash's attack had caused the spiral to become extremely unstable. Under the destruction of the Path of Oblivion, the second strike had caused the whip to violently tremble. The third strike had directly shattered the whip's defenses. The 3 consecutive strikes were like a hot knife through butter. What? Poison Rose's face changed drastically. She had never thought that Lin Feng's attacks would increase so drastically. She hurriedly pulled back her attack and did her best to defend. Even though she did not believe that Lin Feng's attacks were fatal, she did not want to be injured. However, diverting one's attention to defense and changing one's moves in battle was a great taboo. Coupled with the fact that Firefly had not dodged earlier, she had been preparing for battle the entire time. Divine punishment of condensing light. Even though Firefly was still not familiar with it, and her face was pale from overworking her power, she still used her most powerful attack, targeting Poison Rose. Chapter 21-28. Endless light fell, containing light and the path of brilliance. In an instant, it turned into a huge, triangular cone and shrouded Poison Rose. The moment it shrouded her, the brilliance triangular cone shrunk. Every time it shrunk, countless light rays attacked Poison Rose in the center. The strongest attack of a pinnacle true treasure was extraordinary. Shio, shio, shio. Endless rays of light shot out like a machine. Poison Rose, whose attention had been completely attracted by Lin Feng, was caught off guard and was hit. She gritted her teeth in anger and tried to resist. The fiery red armor condensed into a shadow and completely covered her full body, doing her best to defend. You want to hurt me? Stop dreaming. The Poison Rose was already enraged, and a rose shape faintly appeared on her forehead. It was incomparably blood-red. Firefly's strongest attack was blocked. Firefly's power was not at the level of a god, and she hadn't fully mastered the light-condensing punishment. Although she caught Poison Rose off guard, she didn't hurt her. Perfect defense. Poison Rose didn't care. But in the next moment, her expression changed drastically. Annihilation. A terrifying pressure came the moment she broke the light-condensing punishment. It didn't give her any chance to relax. A huge halo fell like a hoop, and the majestic power in the middle was like a meteorite falling. Boom! This time, Lin Feng hit the target. His fighting spirit was overflowing, like a divine soldier descending from the sky. The strongest tears of chaos, with the enhancement of the Tao of Annihilation's rule, all really hurt Poison Rose. The smell of blood spread in the sky. A shrill and furious voice resounded throughout the entire area, coming from the fiery red Poison Rose. She, who was injured by Lin Feng, was like an evil spirit. The fiery red rose imprint on her forehead was completely bright, causing her face to be incomparably distorted. She was like a devil awakening. I want you to die. Poison Rose went crazy. The bloodline power that she had been hiding exploded like a bomb. The terrifying aura was like the end of the world, and it dyed the whole sky red. Lin Feng and Firefly were on guard. They knew that Poison Rose's power wasn't simple, and it seemed that it was terrifying. Even if the two of them joined forces, their chances of winning were very slim. However, Lin Feng did not retreat. This was a tough battle that had to be fought. No matter how strong Poison Rose was, as long as he still had the strength to fight, he would not allow her to kill Firefly and Sanya. She possesses the battle prowess of a peak elementary god, while my way of oblivion has reached the 100,000 origin realm, so I've reached the level of an elementary god as well. With Fifth Sister's help, our chances of winning are small, but it's not impossible. Lin Feng's fighting spirit was at its peak. The strength of the Poison Rose had already caused his blood vessels to expand as he pushed his strength to the limit. He had not felt this comfortable for a long time. Only such a battle could truly stimulate one's potential. Today he would fight to the end. Right at this moment, swish! Poison Rose, who was filled with anger, was stunned for a moment. Her twisted face looked extremely unnatural. Her cheeks were slightly hesitant, and her eyes were filled with anger and resentment. However, she was also hesitant. It was extremely complicated. It was as if he was worried about something, or as if there was some trouble. Just you wait. Poison Rose's blood-red eyes stared straight at Lin Feng as she roared hysterically, I won't let you go. Poison Rose's vicious gaze swept across Firefly and Sanya. She was extremely angry. And every single one of you from the Milky Way's human clan, all of you deserve to die. Poison Rose's voice was like a ferocious ghost's roar. The fiery red figure left after a heart-wrenching cry, disappearing in the blink of an eye. Not only was Lin Feng stunned, but Sanya and Firefly were also confused. They did not know what had happened. It was a little unbelievable. Which senior helped me? Can you come out and meet me? Lin Feng asked. He could not sense anyone around, but his sixth sense told him that there must be an expert spying on him. Poison Rose probably knew this person and was extremely afraid of him. Who was it? Ha ha! Hearty laughter rang out. An azure figure suddenly appeared in the void, as if he had suddenly appeared from another space. His movement technique was strange and mysterious, enough to scare everyone. What strong attainments in space. Lin Feng looked at the newcomer and immediately understood. No wonder Poison Rose was filled with resentment and left unwillingly. The newcomer's strength was indeed not someone she could provoke. Ranked third on the Origin Awakening list, the strongest lone traveler, Azure Dragon King, Li Qing. Greetings, Azure Dragon King. Lin Feng and Firefly bowed slightly. Sanya, who had cleared a little of the poison, also stood up and bowed. The person before them was a famous big shot in the Origin Awakening continent. Not to mention them, even Patriarch Dong Wang was extremely polite when he saw the Azure Dragon King. No need to be so polite. I'm just passing by, Li Qing said casually. Time did not leave any traces on him. He looked very young and handsome. Lin Feng looked at Fifth Sister Firefly. As far as he knew, Fifth Sister admired the Azure Dragon King. However, there did not seem to be anything special at this moment. Senior's arrival scared Poison Rose away, Lin Feng said with a smile. Li Qing shrugged. This is a coincidence. I did not come for Poison Rose. It is just that she has a guilty conscience and is suspicious of others, cherishing her reputation too much. Actually, if she wants to deal with you, I will not interfere. Lin Feng nodded. What the Azure Dragon King said was the truth. He was not related to Lin Feng's group. Naturally, there was no need for him to help. However, Poison Rose gauged the heart of a gentleman with the yardstick of a petty person. Perhaps she was afraid that the Azure Dragon King would interfere, that the Azure Dragon King would take her life, or that the Sandpiper and Clam would fight and benefit. With all these fears added up, Poison Rose gave up on her target. She was too careful. However, sometimes one still had to take risks. Being too cautious might not be a good thing. I remember that you are the Milky Way's human races. Firefly Sovereign, right? Li Qing looked at Firefly and praised. After 3 days, I have to look at you in a different light. Unexpectedly, you, who are ranked 50th on the Origin Awakening list, have the strength close to the top 10. Being praised by her former idol, Firefly's face immediately turned red. She was very happy. If I'm not wrong, this staff should be a pinnacle true treasure. Li Qing looked deeply at the light-condensing divine staff and clicked his tongue. It actually has the ice attribute. How strange. No wonder even Poison Rose, that old witch, suffered a loss. I got it by chance, Firefly said modestly. Li Qing laughed heartily. You're fated with it. Treasures have spirits and will naturally choose their masters. As he spoke, his gaze had already descended on a Lin Feng, and it carried a deep and curious gaze. Suddenly, Li Qing's eyes narrowed as he said with a smile, Little brother, if I'm not wrong, then you're probably the rising star that rose to fame in the Calamity Impasse. Demonic Blade King. Chapter 21-29. Senior, you have a good eye. Lin Feng smiled. Li Qing said, I heard that you've killed many experts along the way. You've almost offended everyone in the Origin Awakened continent. Lin Feng smiled awkwardly. Although many of them were unintentional, the Azure Dragon King was right. The tallest tree in the forest will be destroyed by the wind. It's a good thing that young people are not afraid of tigers. Nurturing battle with battle is also one of the rules of becoming stronger. However, you can also keep a low profile sometimes. Having too many enemies may not be a good thing. Li Qing smiled. Okay, senior. Lin Feng said. Li Qing smiled slightly, looking at Lin Feng with a deep gaze. You're very much like me when I was young. You're not afraid of anything. Go and walk your own path. I hope that the next time I see you, you'll be on par with that old witch, Poison Rose. I will, senior. Lin Feng nodded. You're full of vigor and confidence. Li Qing laughed heartily. Then, he swept his gaze across everyone and shrugged. We're fated to meet. Unfortunately, I can't stay here for too long. There's a stupid beast chasing after me. Damn, it's here again. Li Qing's expression changed, revealing a bitter smile. Everyone, this is goodbye. We'll meet again if we're fated. Once he finished speaking, he did not wait for anyone to reply. In an instant, he transformed into a green dragon illusory figure that swiftly flew away and disappeared in an instant. However, He came without a trace and left without a trace. Stupid beast? Lin Feng was slightly stunned. What kind of stupid beast could chase the dignified Azure Dragon King until he couldn't speak? Sanya and Firefly were also confused and looked at each other. Suddenly, Lin Feng's eyes lit up and his heart jumped. A terrifying aura suddenly descended from a distance. It wasn't any weaker than Li Qing's, and its ruthless aura was heavier and more intense. It was like an unparalleled overlord that ruled the earth. Roar! A shocking roar resounded through the sky, and darkness instantly descended. It was a terrifying giant beast with two bloody horns on its head. Its blood-red eyes were filled with boundless anger as it stepped through the air and arrived. The blood-red Beast King. Swoosh! Swoosh! Sangya and Firefly's expressions changed. They never thought that after Poison Rose left, another monster even more terrifying than Poison Rose would appear. The Blood-Maned Beast King was famous for killing thousands of people. He was much more intimidating than the Poisonous Rose. Encountering such a monster, he wouldn't even have the chance to escape. This is the other Blood-Maned Beast King. Lin Feng gazed at the Blood-Maned Beast King. Its intimidating aura suppressed Poisonous Rose. It was 10 times stronger than the Blood-Maned Beast King that had been hurt by his soul attack. Even someone as strong as the Azure Dragon King, Li Qing, was being chased around by it. If it was this Blood-Maned Beast King who had ambushed him that day, he wouldn't have been able to win. Azure Dragon King. As the Blood-Maned Beast King roared, it did not even spare a glance at Lin Feng and the others as it chased after the Azure Dragon King. It came quickly and left quickly. In the blink of an eye, space shattered and the darkness vanished. Soon, everything calmed down and everything returned to normal. This is the stupid beast that the Azure Dragon King mentioned? Firefly smiled bitterly. It seems so. Sanya still hadn't recovered from shock. The Blood-Maned Beast King is at least an intermediate deity. Lin Feng sighed. With his current strength, he still couldn't determine its true strength, just like how he couldn't determine the Azure Dragon King's true strength. However, it was certain that the Azure Dragon King was stronger than the Poisonous Rose. One was an intermediate deity. The other was only a novice deity. It's a pity that I couldn't fight to the end. Lin Feng held Black's skeleton tightly and looked into the distance. With his speed, he could stop the Poisonous Rose. However, she fled very quickly, and even if he caught up to her, he didn't have much confidence in winning. Although his Tao of Oblivion had reached 100,000 Origin Realm, his combat strength had only increased by a small level. From the limit of an ordinary deity to the threshold of a novice deity. He was still far from the limit of a novice deity like the Poisonous Rose. Even with the addition of the fifth sister, Firefly, their chances of winning against the Poisonous Rose were less than 20%. She really lives up to her reputation. Lin Feng sighed. This was the leader of the Fatal Limit, the most legendary woman on the Origin Awakening list. Perhaps she didn't have the heart of an expert, but her strength and ability were undeniable. Such an opponent wasn't easy to deal with. Next time, should I fight her as an equal? Lin Feng thought of the Azure Dragon King's words before he left. It was mostly to encourage the younger generation. However, he knew that day wasn't too far away. There's no need for next time. Soon, the victor will be decided between us. Lin Feng was clear. As long as he remained in the God-fallen world, it was only a matter of time before he encountered the Poisonous Rose again. Second brother. Vice Patriarch. Firefly and Tsang, you were searching for their second brother, Shi Dingshan, in Buyu Slope. If he was alive, they wanted to see him. If he was dead, they wanted to see his corpse. He's here. Lin Feng's sense of aura was extremely strong. Very quickly, he found traces of his second brother, Shi Dingshan, in a thicket of thorns. His whole body was covered in wounds and blood. It looked like he had been tortured to death, but he hadn't. Second brother really didn't die. Lin Feng revealed a smile. A fruit of heaven and earth appeared in his hand, and he directly stuffed it into Shi Dingshan's mouth. A vigorous energy entered his body, and Shi Dingshan's almost lifeless aura instantly reacted. Fourth brother, he's here. Firefly shouted. Whoosh, whoosh. Two figures arrived in a flash, their eyes filled with nervousness and worry. Seeing her second brother, Shi Dingshan's injuries, a trace of pity flashed across Firefly's face. Her small, jade-like hands trembled as they touched Shi Dingshan's chest. Her worry turned into joy. Great! Second brother is still alive. Phew! Sanya let out a long sigh. He revealed a relieved smile and sat down on the ground. No matter what, it was good that he was still alive. What happened, seventh brother? Why did Ming kill second brother? Firefly asked. Sanya's eyes were also filled with confusion. That day, he clearly saw Ming's aggressive and murderous aura. He was coerced, Lin Feng said. Coerced? Firefly and Sanya were stunned. Lin Feng nodded. In the end, Ming begged for death. Before he died, he hoped that I could bury them together. I'm just guessing. Poison Rose probably captured his wife to force Ming to work for her. Despicable. Firefly was so angry that her eyes were watery. That's too much. Sanya gritted his teeth, unable to restrain his anger. Lin Feng said, she is the leader of Deadly Limit. She will do anything to achieve her goal. Kidnapping and coercing people is just a normal method. Actually, Ming also knew that after being coerced by Poison Rose, he would never be able to regain his freedom. Death is his release and final destination. As for why he wanted to kill you and second brother, Lin Feng looked at Sanya. Because Poison Rose was hiding in the dark. If he didn't do it, then she would have done it. Sanya's expression turned serious. Firefly sighed softly. There were many things in life that were beyond one's control. Seventh brother is right. A hoarse voice suddenly sounded. Sanya and Firefly's eyes immediately lit up. They were overjoyed. Second brother, Vice Clan leader,